Good evening, Privacy Fridays, and welcome to the last episode for the year. And our theme for tonight, it's very interesting, everyone, data privacy and cybersecurity in the metaverse. So good evening again, Bounce Back Network, friends at NADPOP, PHCert, Bounce Back Philippines. I'm Sam Hacoba. I'm with my co-host. So Dito Averia, good evening.
Magandang gabi sa ating last episode for the year.
Ang dami mong parol dyan sa background mo dito So virtual parol ba yan or
sa labas ng bahay yan?
Akala ko virtual parol. Kumusta na? Lagari ka ngayon, no? You attended a conference, several conferences, di ba? Today? In the whole week, no? So
yeah, may mga webinars pa ako. I'm still running webinars, no? Until next week.
Grabe, di ba?
Lalo-lalo na sa eleksyon.
Definitely, oo. Sama natin dito ang ating kasamang si Albert de la Cruz. Abet, magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi mga katoto, mga katito.
There you are.
Ayos ba?
Bagong gupit po.
Bagong gupit.
Bagong tasa. Welcome everybody to our last episode of the year. Kailan na ba tayo, Sam?
20 plus. Sa tingin ko, more than 21. Yeah. Or this may be the 21st episode.
Biro mo, kailan lang? Nag-test broadcast lang tayo.
Oo, pinag-uusapan natin tatlo nila dito, di ba? Saan nga ba yun?
Ano ba? Kumakain ba tayo? Umiinom tayo?
Isang online hangout.
Sa kanya-kanyang bahay.
Copy daw ako sabi ng ating guest speaker. So sana, sana maayos naman yung audio na nakakarating. Shoutout naman po sa mga kasama natin sa sa Bounce Back. Ngayon pa nga pala dito in Abet kasabay ito ng Virtual Expo ng Bounce Back Philippines. Ayun ni-launch. Metaverse din ng team nun. Kaya it will run for a few more days. Kaya sana you can join. There are like hundreds of merchants online. So shoutout Jason De La Rosa and team. Sa ating online bazaar.
Congratulations, Bounce Back. Huwag niyo kalimutan bumisita pagkatapos nito, no. I think hanggang a couple of days pa 'yon, no, Sam.
4 days yata. Tama. So may mga consumer products and the other services that you can take a look at. Dito Abet, alam niyo ba
na lang po ang Christmas shopping.
Correct. Alam niyo ba na yung guest natin ngayon nagbabalik. Kasi nabitin siya last week, no? So
kahit na reception daw last week kaya babawi.
Babawi siya. Saka isa lang yata sa kanyang fearless forecast Pero ngayon, i-set up ko lang I prepared something. One of the reasons why we selected this team, di ba? Napakainit na discussion to ngayon Metaverse So, i-share ko lang pagaw natin itawagin ng ating panauhing pandangal, ang unang panahon pandangal. Yan, what is a metaverse? Yung baka akala ng iba, ito yung Marvel Universe, hindi po yan. Hindi po Marvel Cinematic o kaya DC. Ang definition po, this is from QZ.com. It is a virtual reality world where you can go to school, work, play games, watch concerts, browse store shelves, and much more without leaving your physical home. If the internet is two-dimensional, like what we have right now, text and images on flat screens, think of the metaverse as three-dimensional and multi-sensory, including touch. Sometimes smell, sinasabi pa nila, di ba? So, napaka-ano ng definition, So, share ko din, ito from another source, the origin of the metaverse. Saan ba nanggaling yung word na yan, So, experts reviewed it, and Neil Stephenson's novel, Snow Crash, actually, this is where it originated, He merged yung meta and universe and came up with metaverse. And sabi nga nito, si Andrew Archa, one of the writers on Time Magazine, yung Ready Player One movie, that is a classic example or one of the best examples, siyempre, sa movies of the metaverse. And ito, ang ganda ng line niya. In both novels, the metaverse was entwined with dystopia. It held sway in a society that was in ruins and controlled by shadowy corporations.
Correct.
But in both books, the metaverse offered the allure of escape from their bleak existence, while also reinforcing corrupt power structures. Anyway, read the books or watch the movie Ready Player One. Okay. And dagdag pa, ito privacy in the metaverse. Sabi naman ni dataprivacymanager.net, we can expect companies in the metaverse to collect personal information for individual identification, advertisement, and tracking through multiple channels like wearable devices. Ako yung mga sinusuot nyo, no? Na connected. Mics, okay, of course, video cameras, yeah. Heart and respiratory monitors, health, no? And user interactions to the extent that we have never seen before. Sabi ni Data Privacy Manager, this could easily lead to a world of no privacy. Nakakatakot, no? So,
of course.
o kaya parang
Lalo na
may
yung heart and respiratory monitors.
correct. However, there are those who see that there's sign of hope, no? Sabi nga ni Ando Chow, continuous article, I'd like to define the metaverse as the ways in which our physical and digital selves are becoming increasingly blurred. Okay? Many people see the metaverse not as one united world, but scenario in which we will be able to seamlessly bring ourselves and our stuff from fashion to art to spending money with us from platform to platform. The ideas of digital sovereignty, ang galing, no? And interoperability are key. So instead of having separate Facebook and Twitter accounts in which everything you post is owned by those corporations, you will be able to own your digital personhood and all of your ideas and digital belongings wherever you go. Ang ganda, no? So basahin niyo po ang article na to, nasa time.com, at sa meron pong blog si Andrew Chow actually that he releases every week. I've been following him since pumutok nga to a few months ago. Okay? So with that, let's introduce our first keynote speaker, our good friend. Actually, he needs no introduction. Alam nyo, talagang napakagaling ng mama to. One of the gurus and one of the pillars of data protection. Not just data protection, no? Pati information technology. Di ba, nagsisimula pa lang ako, guru na to. So ngayon, super guru na talaga. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome our good friend, Dondi Mapa. Woo! Dondi, magandang gabi.
Yeah, magandang gabi, Sam. Thank you for bringing me back on.
Oo, salamat. Talagang bitin na bitin kami sa sa topic sa talk natin last week dahil nagbabiyahe ka. So medyo napuputol-putol, no? Yan. So Dondi, welcome back. You look so relaxed now, no? So I remember the last time we spoke, naka-coat and tie ka pa sa Canada ka pa sa Citibank Tower, no? Kaya kitang-kita pa yung pumapasok talaga si Dondi. Yeah, Dondi, so last week you told us yung one of the fearless workers, there will be more. Ano? So, yan, more data, more breaches. In fact, ngayong Q4, ang laki ng breach na nangyari.
More breaches. So, yung sa
industry pang tinamaan. And one of the
banking,
biggest
that's
banks in
right.
the Philippines, di ba? And one of the most dynamic banks, yung digital bank, were involved, no? At the same time, meron pang at the tail end, yung blockchain community nasama din. So, you can see the connections really. So, again, underlying theme lang talaga yung metaverse. But we're seeing that, as things progress, no? Especially during this pandemic where, digital, digital services will continue to expand. Ang daming risk, no? So, again, Dondi, coming from your talk last week on fearless forecast that there'll be more. What else should the DPOs and CISOs look out for in 2022?
Well, I think on a macro level, we'll see more regulation. If you follow Daniel Solov, I think Chairman Liboro also talks about Solov, and his writings, he compares it to other industries, because we know, right now we know the risk, of giving your personal data and the risk of losing your privacy. But not many people know that risk, But pag nawala yung privacy mo, you know the effects, And we've already seen it, like we said in this recent cyber scandal, not to hit the banking industry, but in many others, So, and yet we allow people to collect data and expose their data, knowing that there's a risk to them, So, what Daniel Solov is saying is that we need to start regulating end to end. Okay, and so let's talk about an example. One example is the dairy industry, gatas. Meron ka simple sa gatas. Did you know that in the 1900s, it was one of the leading causes of child mortality? drinking milk, no, because at that time there was no way that you could assure, that your milk was sanitized, that was pasteurized, no, and so on. So it would cause sicknesses, it would even cause death, right? Can you imagine if we still had that situation today? How did we solve it? No, by looking end to end, from the dairy farm to the trucking to the grocery shelves to the time it gets to your refrigerator, right? All of these innovations and regulations along the way make sure that when you open a box of milk and you drink it, it's practically risk-free. Okay. So how can we have that same situation when it comes to data collection, data processing? That the data that I give, I'm sure, will not come back and hurt me later on. How can I be sure that the data I give to this person or to that corporation or put in this form, hindi yan magagamit, no, para masaktan ako? Can you be sure of that? Obviously not, no? I mean, look at how your cell phone can be used, no? Your mobile number can be used, can be faked, no? Your driver's license, no, that you give it to someone can be used to open a mule account, right? So that money can be transferred there. So we don't have that comfort, no, in like I said, no, compare it just to drinking a glass of milk and pouring it, from, and we trust whether the milk comes from New Zealand or from the Visayas, or from some other country, right? We know that it's gone through a set of quality standards that builds trust. So how do we have, this trust? How can we trust people that are collecting this data, storing the data for us? Kung ngayon pa lang hindi natin sila mapagkakatiwalaan, mas lalo na sa Metaverse. Because there's so much more data, as was mentioned earlier, that can be collected and gleaned, and that algorithms can use, to manipulate you or to discriminate against you. So that's one aspect. No? I mean, again, like I said, I'll talk on a macro level. We need to build trust in our industry, in our IT industry, basically in any data technology, industry. Anything, whether it's wearables, whether it's social media sites, whether it's data in the cloud, whoever is involved in the data collection, data storage, data processing, data distribution, value chain, supply chain, needs to be regulated, to have that same level of trust. Like I said, when we trust the farms, the truckers, the groceries, all the way to the refrigerator that keeps our milk fresh. So we have to recognize, that this is not just you and me, not just IT, not just DPO, not just CISOs. There's that whole supply chain that's involved there. Now, are we gonna get there? That's what we're beginning to see more, more and more. Like I said last week, it's a cycle. GDPR came out, and then PIPL in China, and then India is now going to come up with something that's, even more stringent. The US eventually, I'm sure we'll see that, right? So that's what we want. No, we need to be able to trust. Well, let me pause there and get your comments muna.
Yeah, thank you. Dondi, meanwhile, daming nag-greet sa'yo dito sa ating, okay, good evening, Sir Rafi. Placido, magandang gabi. One of our winners last week. Giving daw, ayan, dito, ayan, Abet, etc. Magandang gabi. And we have sound from Cebu. Ayan, by Irving Kamanyan. Oh, I hope you're safe from the storm, yung mga ating mga kababayan na tinamaan sa Visayas, we're praying for you and for your safety. But anyway, Irving, it's good that, you have, you're able to log in. Magandang gabi. And of course, ito si Arnel Celis. Yan. I know you all know si Arnel, no? Yan, Merry Christmas na and Happy New Year. Magandang gabi, Arnel. Na-miss ka na namin.
Thank you, Arnel.
Sir Mark Magallanes, magandang gabi din po sa inyo. Yan, salamat sa inyong pagdalo sa aming last episode for the year, no? And then, Sir Ireneo, Cañete. Magandang gabi. Yan, ako, mga kids mo yata yan, no? Sir Godwin Alvarez. Yan, good evening daw, Sir Dondi. Good evening, everyone. Magandang gabi din, Sir Godwin. And then, yan, si Maricel, ang ating Suki. Magandang gabi. Oo. Okay, so ang daming daming nag-greet sa atin and si Mark Anthony Hetrosa. Magandang gabi, Sir Mark, watching from Davao, no? So ayan, ang daming nationwide tayo talaga, and yung mga those who are going to watch the replays, so if you're still sleeping in some part of the world, good evening or good morning or good afternoon to you. Okay, ito na, Dondi, thank you for that. Again, as you've said, really countries are coming up with their own laws that are more stringent than the Philippines, right? And in this digital world right now, where things are seamless and borderless, right? Yung information really flows so fast, and not just information, even your money, it can disappear in an instant, no? Like what happened. Lito and Abet, any comments on what Dondi has shared with us? HC for beauty daw, Lito. Ikaw muna.
Okay, well, yun na nga, no? So, Dondi just underscored yung trust, no? Actually, talagang mabibuild yung trust chain, no? I was just thinking of one client nga na tinitingnan ko yung value chain niya, no? Because this client who is undergoing compliance with the DPA is actually an information processor. So hindi siya yung nangongolekta ng data. It gets collected somewhere else, no, by somebody else, passed on to him, and then pinapass on pa rin niya to a third party. So you can see there the whole supply chain already. So tinatanong ko sa kanila, saan yung weakness dyan? Saan yung pwedeng maging butas? Ano yung pwedeng maging points of attack? And that's basically the challenge that I'm going through now for this client. Kasi I have to teach them to think differently. No? They have to think how to protect the personal information that they handle. Okay? So iba yung mindset nila kasi. Mindset nila iba sa mindset ng data protection. So they really have to think. And I refuse to spoon feed them. No? Kailangan ma-draw out ko galing sa kanila. Kasi nga, sabi ko sa kanila, kung hindi ko ma-draw out sa inyo yan, how will you own it? Diba? And that's how you build trust then for your customers. Because you have to really own it. Yung protection. So, yun yung para sa akin, yun sa sinabi ni Dondi, yung significant, it's trust. We have to build trust.
Yeah, thank you, Lito. Abet.
Okay.
Ganda ng gupit mo, ha?
Maginaw na, nagpakalbo pa eh. No? Actually, kanina ko pa iniisip. Alam mo, first time kami magkasama ni Dondi was an association. And for the love of me, hindi ko maalala. So nung nagsasalita natin siya, tsaka ko lang naalala. Ewan ko naalala pa ni Dondi. Philippine Association of Open Computing.
Of course.
Ayun. Doon kami muna nagkasama. No? Si Dondi yung president. I was one of the members. No? So,
formerly Unix Users Club of the Philippines yan, di ba?
Oh, yun yung second iteration. Kaso yung ano niya, so pag binuo mo yun, pasok yun. So parang, And then I think we later changed it to IT for business. So, so yun, sorry. Dondi, nahala tayo edad natin. But I just want to take off. No, actually, maganda yung point ni Dondi. Regulation, you really have to be, I don't know, there's a balance that you have to put, di ba? So you don't want to over-regulate, but at the same time, you also want to protect the legitimate welfare ng mga users. So when he mentioned end-to-end regulation, and then naisip ko Metaverse, sabi ko, parang mahirap kasi wala pa tayo sa Metaverse. We're already having challenges on, di ba, yung end-to-end regulation. imagine if you have to regulate non-fungible tokens, di ba? NFT or any other of the blockchain technology kasi papasok rin sa metaverse eh. For the love, I just can't imagine kung paano or ano pang idadagdag natin, which I'm sure dapat dagdagan yung mga current regulations. So that would be a a very very interesting thing to watch out, especially us that are advocates of regulations, di ba? Data Privacy Act. So parang
Yeah.
parang it's a Herculean task, no, Dondi?
Sige. Now let me give you then my part 2, no? Kasi I like your reaction, no? Tama, yan ang mga nisip. How do we do that, no? So let me now talk about a different industry, automotive industry. No? So just look back, maybe in the 60s, again, a leading cause of death, traveling in an automobile. How can I trust my life? How can I trust the life of my children, my family, by putting them in a car which is unsafe at any speed, di ba? That was the book, no, of Ralph Nader, no? So, and yet, we go forward now, 50 years, it's much safer, no? What are the things that were done? No? Now, so we take a look at the automobile itself, no? May anti-lock brakes, may seat belts, hindi lang yung lap belt ngayon, 3-point na, di ba? So these things have to be legislated, have to be regulated, so that car makers would make their automobiles safer, di ba? But even the safest car, in the hands of a driver that doesn't follow the rules, is also unsafe. No? So we have to now regulate the whole licensing, making sure that whoever handles this automobile has certain qualifications. Okay, so I think you're beginning to see how, and some of this is from Daniel Solov also. No, you're beginning to see how we should have certification of people handling or processing our data. No, but even if you have a good driver and a good car, if the roads, yung mga kalsada, may mga pedestrians or may mga potholes or may mga landslides, etc. No, so and this is what we call now, you have to really look at every aspect, right? And they're different industries, no? Road building is different from licensing, is different from traffic management, is different from building an automobile. And yet all of that put together is what allows us to trust our lives, no, in putting our lives in an automobile. No? So how do we have that? No? How do we have that now? Because when we put our data somewhere, that's buhay na rin natin yun eh. Diba? As Sam said, pera mo na rin yun. At some point, that might even be used to discriminate against you. Can be used against you when some of your data, which may no longer be relevant, could still be kept and used against you when you're applying for a job or applying in school, for children and so on. So how do we create that trust in that whole data chain? And part of it, I think, as Elito has said, is whenever you identify these players in the data chain, you make them accountable. You have them sign an agreement, data sharing agreement. Oh, ito ngayon, yung NPC nag-issue ng circular. The DPO must be a witness to the data sharing. Kasi dati may paper data sharing agreement, pipirma yung isang kumpanya, hindi man lang nila alam ano yung pinipirma nila. No? But now, because it's a DPO, that must be co-signatory there. Sasabihin niya, wala kami DPO. Hindi kami magkaroon ng data sharing sa inyo. Hindi nyo pala kayang protektahin itong data na to. Wala kayong data protection officer, etc. So, that's already one, creating this trust, in the link, in this chain, right? Another one would be certifications. So, of course, some of us know about all of this ISO. Alam na natin matagal na yung 27001 for information security. May bagong 27701, for privacy. So mahalaga tong certifications. These numbers will mean something. I am ISO certified. Oh yes, so I can trust the data to you. So meron ka palang ganito. no, then you start to build, that value chain. Lahat ng suppliers, lahat ng, forward and backward integration, lahat sila dapat may ISO. Storage, there's ISO 27018, which is the information security standard for processing in the cloud. So if you put your data in a cloud or ang dami ito, di ba? We don't even develop our own software anymore. We go to SaaS, software as a service providers. And most of those SaaS players store their data in the cloud. And you have to ask, meron bang ISO 27018 dyan? Hindi lang pwede yung 001. It should be 27018 to give you assurance that no unauthorized employees are looking at that data, that data is not going to be used for research or marketing or analytical purposes, that they will actually that they will inform you, if there's a government request for that data, and so on. So 27018. And later on, there are certifications coming out on privacy by design, privacy by engineering. This is just beginning. So looking at 2022 going forward, these standards are going, and it's like the automotive industry, like I said, ang dami standards na dyan, just to make sure that your car is safe, the roads are safe, etc. So this is what we have to look forward to, in our industry, in our field where we use technology. We have to start building trust, and that trust is built in several steps, through intercompany agreements, through certification, so that you don't have to sign any more 100 agreements. Sasabihin mo, certified naman kami, pwede nyo yung tanggapin to. And through, and then very important now, the trust mark. So meron na tayong sa Pilipinas, data privacy trust mark, which I think, hopefully, Chairman Liboro will discuss later. This is one of the legacies, I think that the NPC, the first batch of commissioners. Kasi actually, this was in the strat plan. Nag-strat planning kami ni DEPCOM IV, Patdu, the Chairman Liboro. And we were all saying, what will we do on our first year? Kasi a 3-year term. What will we do in our second year? What will we do in our third year? Ayan. And we already said we want to be trusted abroad. And so we want to have Philippine companies handling data, yung mga BPO, ganyan. So meron naman yan, it's called APEC, CBPR, Cross-Border Privacy Rules, or APEC PRP, Privacy Rules for Processors, Privacy Recognition for Processors. So yung CBPR and PRP, the Philippines has already signed the agreement to, and it has been accepted for CBPR. The only step remaining is an accountability agent. Sino yung magsa-certify? And just 2 weeks ago, nagpalabas ang NPC ng publication that they are now accepting applications for accountability agents. So that will be a key step towards the international standard called APEC CBPR. The other standard, which will be primarily for domestic transactions, so domestic partners in this data chain, will be the trust mark. So again, this is something that Japan has, Singapore has, Taiwan has. Hindi naman to, we're not reinventing the wheel here. But history has shown us that it's a very slow climb. I looked at Japan. In the first year that Japan had their trust mark, 5 companies got it. The next year, 10. Then 20. And then 30. And then after 10, 15 years, ngayon palang umabot sa 19,000. Ganyan, So, Singapore, similar. Singapore's trust mark has been out, I think, 3 years already, Hindi pa umabot ng 100, So, it's a conundrum. Bakit ganon? Ganon ba talaga kahirap makuha yung trust mark?
Ang tagal ng tipping point, Dondi, Ang tagal mag-tip.
Yun nga eh. Parang, how do I get certified, okay? And think about certification as a diploma. It's like you get your college diploma. How long does it take your college diploma? 1 day. You march on the stage, you get it. Yan, may diploma na ako. But Before you got your diploma, what did you have to do? You had to go through 4 years. Yung iba pa nga, 5 years, di ba? Yung iba pa nga, 6 years. Nasa koleyo. Tapos makuha yung diploma, di ba? So, that's how certification. Now, ako, feeling ko in the Philippines, this is a challenge for us. But I think given all the work, that organizations like NADPOP have been doing, like NPC has been there with its 5 pillars and all the circulars and advisories, I think ang dami ng kumpanya na ready to graduate. So I'm really hoping in 2022, pag na-launching Transmart, pag na-launching CBPR, hindi lang 5 yung papasa, hindi lang 10. Pero in the hundreds na yan. Kasi for the past 5 years, we've all been preparing. We've been doing our data processing inventories, our PIAs, our ROPAs, our breach plans, breach management plans. So, I hope. I'm really speculating, but I'm hoping that there are many companies out there na siguro kung hindi pa pwedeng i-certify, 5% na lang o 10% na lang ang kulang. And what I would really like to see in 2022 is, for the Philippine Trust Mark and the APEC certification to take off like a rocket, in 2022. Hindi kagaya ng ibang countries na yung iba doon, hindi pa nila naiintindihan yung privacy, hindi pa sila seryoso. Times are different. And I think that the ground is different here in the Philippines because we have been preparing for a long time. We have been talking about putting in place our privacy management programs, and all that remains, like I said, is to go up on stage and get your diploma. And everyone that will have this diploma or the certification will form part of that trusted, value chain, that we can entrust our data to. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, thank you, Dondi. By the way, if you don't know yet, everyone, it was announced 2 days ago that again, incoming, Privacy Commissioner John Henry Naga. Yan, kaya congratulations po, Commissioner, or dating
Chairman Naga, yes.
Chairman
Welcome
Naga,
to Chairman Naga.
Papasalamatan natin mamaya pagka-onboard na si online na si founding commissioner, si Mon Liboro, di ba? Dondi, mukhang gumraduate din yung batch nyo, Kayong tatlo ni Mon, di ba? Chairman Mon,
Sam, saan unang in-announce ni ex-chairman Mon na ngayon? The ex-chairman Mon yung Trustmark.
Saan ba? Dito, tama, sa atin. Yung
correct, sa atin unang in-announce nung nag-guest siya. So,
October yon, tapos lumabas ng yung announcement nila ng November. Magkasunod yun the Trustmark announcement plus yung they're accepting applicants, di ba, for the accountability agents. Kasi I think APEC requires, the country, di ba, country watchdog, on privacy to nominate like yung companies. And I know in Singapore, it's Infocom Development Board, di ba? That is one of the first accountability agents appointed in Southeast Asia. So yung Infocom Development Board is a government organization. So let's see again sa term ni incoming chairman Naga, what will be his priority.
Yep. And in the future episodes, palagi ko kailangan natin himayin. Paano ba tayo makakakuha ng diploma? Ng Trustmark.
Tama. Pagtulong-tulungan po natin.
Actually, challenge pa yan. Because we have, for you to be able to get the Trustmark, siguro kailangan meron tayong metrics, for assessing how companies and government agencies have complied with the DPA. Marami pa dyan sa tingin ko. I don't have the data, so it may be just speculation, pero marami dyan baka paper compliance. So, may challenge pa rin dyan sa area na yan. Getting that,
By the way, ito, magandang gabi po. Yan, Tita Sandy Santos. Dondi, alala mo si Tita Sandy from ITMS.
Of course, yeah. Hi.
Good evening po, Tita Sandy. Thank you for tuning in again. And si Ervin na naman from Cebu, hindi lumalabas yung name niya sa ano but he wants to be a trained and become a certified DPO. Maganda pong aspiration yan. Kasi grabe ang demand talaga for world-class data protection officers and even chief information security officers. So tutulungan po kayo ng NADPOP PH cert. And of course, Bounce Back Philippines, no? So to do that. Next year po, may mga announcements kami. Patapos na yung taon, but hintayin nyo lang po yun. Marami po kami mga dapat na ni-launch this year, but because of the pandemic, alam niyo naman, di ba? But hintay lang po tayo doon. Oh. Meron ako si Dondi is also is a well-read professional talaga, and you can see what inspires him to excel in his job. Ako din, Dondi, meron akong isang naalalang, as you were telling those stories, si Malcolm Gladwell in his one of his books, he mentioned yung broken windows story, di ba?
Yes, yes.
I think most companies you say may be ready, but ako I think that not most I mean, there's only a few, di ba? A few outliers who are really ready and who are really walking the talk, that they are really serious in protecting personal information. Yung broken windows na, for example, nakita niya na si kapitbahay niya, basag yung window, di ba? Hindi ko na rin naayusin yung ko. Ito yung in-call ko rin I hope that si incoming Chairman Naga will focus first on government. Sana yung compliance magsimula sa mga government agencies. And naman I mean, they can help each other, di ba? I mean, so that kasi each government kasi, for example, is key to an ecosystem. So, for example, DTI, right? If DTI, for example, will begin a compliance program for all businesses in the Philippines and manggagaling sa kanila, it will slow down. Okay? Another DALG, LGUs.
Sure.
Yeah. If that can be an approach, no? Kasi people are saying na tingnan ko nga ito LGU ko, makita nila hindi naman compliant yung LGU. What? If they won't be inspired to protect personal information if their own government leaders, di ba, are not paying attention in protecting their data. So, yan lang po natin na i-part din na mamaya muna natin yung Metaverse. We're in the
Well, I'd like to actually address Jay, who talks about the dangers of the Metaverse.
Ito, yan.
And is it only for those who will be affected? Is it limited to the people involved with it? The answer is no. Okay, I'll tell you why. There's this article on the internet called "Data is the New Carbon Dioxide." Data is the new CO2. Okay, and the person who wrote it, his perspective is like this: kahit nagbibisikleta lang ako, diba? Kahit wala akong kotse, naglalakad lang ako, apektado pa rin yung the air that I breathe, no, is still impacted by all of these gas belchers and pollution, di ba? So, hindi lang naman yung mga may kotse ang nagsasuffer sa CO2 and the effects of global warming, di ba? It affects all of us. Okay. So, why is data? Data is the new CO2. Kasi sinasabi niya, siya mismo, wala siyang social media. Hindi niya pinapost yung pictures ng kids niya, etc. And yet, napo-profile na siya. Right? Because someone who is, so the Great Hack actually tells the story of how Cambridge Analytica did it. They did not need to profile 20 million voters. They did not need to profile 2 million voters. They just needed to profile about 160,000 voters. And based on the profiles of those 160,000 voters, they were already able to come up with, propaganda and, well, let's not, call it misinformation, right? All these dark patterns that would affect, those millions and millions of voters. So even if there are only 5,000 people who decide to enter the metaverse, from the profiles that can be created of those 5,000, it will already be enough, for someone to start manipulating the rest of us. So that's the fear, no?
Yeah.
If we allow the metaverse to grow unregulated, to allow it to start capturing the data of all those who are into the metaverse, then those profiles will already be created. Something as simple as, even if you go to Amazon right now, first time you go to Amazon, you get a book. I want to buy this book. Suddenly it says, oh, and these 10 books are now recommended for you. Ba, paano nalaman ng Amazon? Ito lang isang binili ko. Iba, siguro, you know, it has a profile of you already, you know. At least aside from what book you picked, it also knows, you know, your age, you know, where you're logging in from, and so on. There are cookies already there, you know. So, yun. Then that's what I mean. That's what the author means when he says data is the new CO2. That's what I mean, that the danger is not just to those who enter the metaverse. It's to all of us.
Yeah, thank you, Dondi. Oh, but
Correct.
sorry for that. That was Chairman Mon calling. Hindi daw siya makakonekta sa StreamYards. And
Oh, may problema ba
si
StreamYards?
Cobro, no? Kaya nawala si Lito. Lito's trying to help him. So, Chairman Mon, we're going to wait for you. Masarap ang kwentuhan namin nila Dondi ngayon. So, and thank you for that, Dondi. I mean, and it's actually, we have friends who purposely do not activate their social media, or are not even on social media, precisely for that reason. They don't like to share their.
And yet they will be profiled. You know, the example that guy gives us, data is the new CO2. Migrants, no? They were talking about migrants, no? So parang ganun yung metaverse, eh. You're moving from one world to another. Eh. Papasok tayo dito sa, but you know, as migrants would come into Europe, they would get profiled. And then the first batch of migrants nakalusot, the second batch, pero yung third, fourth, paigpit ng paigpit, parami. And then na-profile sila based on the, you know, those first few batches. So that's what can happen with the metaverse. Yung mga first few batches, yung mga pioneers na mag-adapt, profiles will already start being built, and it will be applied to everyone else. So even if you don't enter the metaverse, it will, whatever data, whatever linkages, algorithms are developed because of the metaverse will be brought into the real world, to be used to manipulate and
Yep. It's not going to be a separate world of its own. Eh. Tama si Dondi, the linkages are everywhere. It's an ecosystem, no? If there's a metaverse, I'm sure part of the internet will already be there. If you're part of the internet, then automatically nandun ka na, no? And when it touches the physical realm, if you're talking about that, definitely there's going to be a big boom in IoT, di ba? That's going to be part of it. So the what they say, when the road hit, when the car hits the pavement or the rubber hits the pavement, hindi pwedeng isolated eh. One way or the other maapektuhan ka eh. So minsan nga, di ba, wala naman tayong ginagawa, hindi naman tayo nagbigay ng OTP, hindi naman tayo nagbigay ng kahit na ano. Nanonood ka lang ng Netflix sa bahay. Pagtingin mo sa account mo, nawala na yung savings mo. No? So because it is intertwined, interconnected, there's symbiosis with the electronic, the digital world. Tama si Dondi. It's like, CO2. Whether you're doing anything or not, it affects you mostly indirectly. Ayun.
Follow-up question si Jay, very relevant. Ito.
All right. So, do you think people should... the problem is you cannot, no? Because social media... it's really not just media, right? It's even lalo na ngayon dahil sa pandemic, everything's online. Mm-hmm. So it's not just social media where data is collected, no. It's when you go to watch a movie on Netflix, no? When you attend a meeting, on Zoom, when you order food through Food Panda, when you go to trips and have transactions on Grab.
The contact tracing
Napaprofile ka na. Ikaw ang nakatira dito. Ito yung mga pinapadalan mo. Dito ka nag-order. Yan. Ito yung favorite food mo. ganito kadami yung etc. Right? So it's not just social media.
Ay, Sam, Dondi may message sa akin. Pwedeng pakilagay naman yung mga books tsaka authors na mga nabanggit nyo. As reference. Ayan.
Galing, oh. Ipapatype natin kay Dondi yung kanyang mga again kay Dondi na rin ako kumukuha ng mga references. Really, ang dami talagang references na sinishare ni Dondi. Especially when if you attend this class or if you were able to attend this class, no? Yung talagang pinaguhugutan ni Dondi, maraming baon ng knowledge.
Yeah. So like Jay says, you may follow up. So you mean people who aren't on the network could be affected by potential risks, di ba? So again, this is similar to yung naapektuhan nung cyber hacking last weekend yung sa bangko, di ba? Siguro yung iba doon, wala man lang social media account and yet naging biktima sila, no? So the minute na profile ka nga, no, then it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but your cohort. And then those same methods will be tried upon you. And if it's successful, then that means that you could be breached, no, or discriminated, or manipulated, or your identity could be stolen, no. So that's why data is the new CO2. Kahit wala kang kotse, it's all around you. Yeah, it's in the Metaverse.
Yep. Speaking of the Metaverse, no, what really triggered the boom in the discussions is when, of course, Facebook changed its name, di ba? So the biggest social media in the world actually staking claim to it. Yun ang message. Well, I remember a few years ago, yung Google naman also changed her name to Alphabet, di ba? Meaning became a holding company, right? So Dondi, the article that I posted earlier on that, there's a lot of insights there, and people are afraid that Facebook's taking its claim, along with the big five. Of course, we have Amazon, we have Microsoft, diba, yung dati nating kumpanyang tatlo. Diba, Google, of course, and Apple, no? Yung big five, diba? Each eventually will have their own metaverses that will be playing into. I don't know if you've experienced it. If you're a gamer, actually, you're familiar on how a metaverse works. Kasi ganun siya. The only difference is that it's immersive, meaning you're inside. So you either have a VR headset, or you go in an environment that's totally where everything's broadcasted. So ganun siya. No? You can see that in science fiction movies, no? And yet when you enter it, diba? I mean, you can take on a different persona, right? You can totally invent a character if you go inside metaverses. In fact, I relate this to the Q4 incident, yung account where those, I won't mention the banks, from the source bank, the account was funneled, to a very fictitious name. Nakita niyo, Mark Nagoyo. Which I believe is a fictitious name. So he may have faked his whole existence, like in order for him to, again, we're speculating, but in the metaverse, there's a chance that you're parang sa Ready Player One, you're talking to someone who's not even a person. Baka AI lang siya, artificial intelligence. So those are the sabi nila mga 5 to 10 years pa in the future, but things are happening now. I think among the countries, Dondi and Abet, China is the one primed to enter into the metaverse because of what they're doing right now with their mobile payment transactions. Kompleto na sila. Kailangan na doon magsusot ka ng headset and that's it. You're already there, you buy food, you book services, etc. Halos cashless na yung society ng China because of again I won't mention brands, because what they have there. Mo culture shock ka. Actually, kung hindi ka sanay.
One of the possible trends, guys, that the government will create its own cyber currency. And at that point in time, your government will know everything that you buy, that you spend your money on, and where your money comes from.
And di ba yung stories there on the social credit score in China, right? So again, this was featured 2 years ago, that your social behaviors are being monitored by the government and you are rewarded accordingly for good behavior and punish, conversely for bad behavior set by the government.
Demerit system ngayon.
Because
you will be, some of your rights will be reduced, some of your privileges will be reduced depending on your grade. Pag umihi ka sa pader, lagot ka, minus something, yung mga ganon yun. Pag lasing ka ng gugulo ka, ayan, babawasan ka.
Yeah. Now, of course, there are supporters, of that.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, these people are getting their just rewards, or what about us? No, we've been behaving all our lives, diba? So, what's our reward? No, yung mga ganyan, no? So, some people are happy, no? They say, wow, my social credit score is so high, and I can reserve a hotel without even using a credit card, or I get better seats, when I reserve on the train, gano'n, no? So, I think the danger really there is inaccuracies. I saw that word in the chat, no? Oh, baka mamaya may tumawid. Binawasan yung credit score mo kasi nagja-jaywalking. Hindi naman pala ako yun. Kamukha ko lang, di ba? So, yung mga ganyan, and then, these things are being done real time. So, AI, I think that the topic was AI, and that's right, the data used to train this AI sometimes can lead to racial discrimination. No, you've heard of that AI, facial recognition that saw some people as animals, no, hindi niya na nakilala as tao, no. So, mga ganon.
Daming comments si Jay. Welcome back dito. So dito was conversing with Chairman Mon Liboro, no? Kaya umalis muna siya sa stream natin. So dito 8:10 daw, no? Makaka-onboard si Chairman Mon, di ba?
Actually, even before sorry. Ayun, Tolites, welcome back.
Yeah. Medyo masama yata yung signal din ngayon eh.
Maulan.
Umulan. Lumang kwento na yun. Parang cable TV. Mahina signal, umulan.
Pero unfortunately, totoo siya eh.
That's technology.
Dumaan, kaya yung mga linya naapektuhan. Kaya,
ironic, Sam, no? Even before you discuss or the actual term Metaverse came out, before the initiative came out, I don't know if you watch, Black Mirror, di ba? It's exactly what you're discussing now, yung ginagawa ng Chinese, exactly like it. Points. And then, Dondi hit the nail on the head. Ganun din. Because it's all technology, it's all AI, it doesn't mean it's 100% flawless. So, yung mga situation na ganun, it's actually, pretty scary if you think about it. No? But because when you put the decision making on AI or machines or algorithms, it makes you wonder, how do you check it, or what if something goes wrong and nobody can pinpoint or nobody even notices. So that was a very scary episode, I think.
Black Mirror.
That's the problem with the technology. Ngayon, actually, nakikita din natin yan. Like yung recent experience ko sa line ko, no? The system says, I haven't paid my bills. And ang kulit niya. No? Hindi mo makorek. Sino yung kakausapin mo? And there's no person at the other end of the line to make the corrections. Okay? So you're talking to machines.
Chatbot. Chatbot. Tapos after a couple of tries sa BCO, contact customer support. Tapos punta mo customer support, your queue number 120. Ayan.
Maghihintay ka the whole day para may makausap ka.
Yeah. Then you have no choice but to go to a store, an outlet of the service provider.
Right. Tapos sasabihin sa'yo, contact customer support.
Kaya nga.
Kanina doon din namin. Dystopia talaga. Before you went live, dito I never discussing yung kasi he attended this online topic on the banking the banking breach that happened.
Fintech,
and we were tracking it, ano, and at the same time, si Dito shared with me the reactions of different groups, no. So, iba yung reaction ng BSP governor, di ba? Iba din yung reaction ng ng bankers group, right? So, well, ano nga ba yun dito?
Yeah.
Well,
And partly this is where the education has to come in. No? I mean, I don't know if you notice this behavior on the part of older people. No? Like, let me just use my parents as an example. Parents going to the car. Okay, I'm about to start the car. I look at them and I say, Dad, yung seatbelt mo. Okay? Kasi he grew up in a time when wala pang seatbelt sa mga kotse. So, papasok lang siya sa kotse in the 60s, 70s, and then they go off. And then he has to grumble, no, to put his seatbelt on. Tayo wala, automatic na, especially the younger ones, no. So, I think this is also the behavior we're now seeing of the younger generations. They see all these breaches, they see all these dangers, they're aware of the risks. So they're willing to do things like OTP, even multi-factor authentication. Hindi hassle sa kanila yon. Alam nila na kailangan yon. Whereas, we have to ask ourselves, in our milieu, in our cohort, sino pa dyan yung mga, OTP, hindi ko naman kailangan yan. Data privacy, wala naman ako tinatago, di ba? Yun pa, nasa attitude pa natin, di ba? So,
Correct.
will we be able to get rid of that in our lifetime? I don't know. But for sure, the succeeding generations, it's in their consciousness already, no? So that gives us hope, I guess.
Nasa kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Kaya dapat, maaga pa lang, tinuturo na natin. Hindi lang K-12, hindi lang high school or college. Dapat K-12, tinuturo na natin itong mga ito. Kasi yan ang future digital citizens that I'm sure will be more smarter than us when it comes to using those devices.
Ako, nagugulat sa mga kids ko. Very careful sila. They're very careful.
Yun ang dapat itulak sa DepEd. Na kahit na, let's say, for example, a 5-minute reminder per class. No? It's not going to be a full course or full curriculum, but it's just a reminder. Every class may 3 to 5 minute reminder about practicing security. Di ba?
Yeah. So in fact, that Daniel Solov has written a book on privacy for children. It's like a bedtime story.
Nice.
So,
nice.
yun, magandang resource din yun. Available, of course, at your favorite Amazon bookstore, no?
Para maganda yung mga iregalo yung mga sinasabi ni Dondi. Tapos na yung 12-12 pero pwede pa kayong humabol, no? You can give those gifts to your favorite DPOs. By the way, magandang gabi. Mint CISO. Yan, Mark Fragoso. Yan lumabas na. So kanina pala si Christian Cañete pala yon yung from Sorsogon is watching from Sorsogon right now. Teka, hindi ko na makita yung post ni Christian na sa taas eh. So sa Bicol region, no? Mukhang all over the Philippines tayo, no? Ito, may si Jay suki sa tanong natin ngayon from weapon systems ito. Do you think cybersecurity data privacy should be a top priority of the government now? Definitely, Jay.
Yes.
Magsasampung taon na yung Data Privacy Act next year, di ba? So 2012 pinirmahan.
Especially so na we recently Congress passed the SIM card registration, for example. Right? Magba-bycam pa yan. Pero nandiyan nga yung mandatory SIM card registration na. Tapos do sa Senate version, meron pang yung identification ng social media users. So, the various platforms will be required under law to identify. Before they can create an account, you have to identify yourself. So, isa yan sa mga magiging pervasive na uses ng social media, yung requirements na yan. So, SIM card registration and registration with the various social media platforms. So, dugtong-dugtong na yan. And with technologies today, madaling ipagdugtong yung databases na yan eh. Right? So, anybody can create your digital persona.
Definitely. Di sa katin mo, again, imagine government within that metaverse. Anong klaseng persona yung haharap sa'yo, for example, if you are lining up for your amilyar sa LGU? Panahon
Yun
namin.
pa yung isang pinag-uusapan nga sa Internet Transactions Act. There's this other bill that we've been discussing, working on with the Senate, the Internet Transactions Act, which will enable nga government agencies transacting digitally with the public. And among those services, yun nga, yung payment ng real estate taxes, payment ng services, government services, marami. So again, yung isang tanong dun sa TWG just the other day, wala ba tayong central database sa real estate?
Yeah.
So there again, the legislators are again thinking of central databases. Para sa akin, delikado yan.
Pero kailangan talaga, yung land registration is another database that has to be cleaned up, diba? I mean, just last month, yung aking sister-in-law, may nagbenta ng lupa nila na hindi naman kanila. So, typical sa Philippines, di ba? I mean, yan. So, I think 80s or 90s pa yung LRA project. I think Dondi numbers, that's one of the biggest digitization projects in the government, yung Land Registration Authority. And maybe you should ask Laris also kung ano yung kanilang take on digitization, right? So, okay, may comment. Ito pala si Mark. Yan, lumabas na. Yan, magandang gabi. Yan, Sir Mark Progoso. Yan, Dondi, dati mong office mate, nasa Mint na ngayon. Pero Lodi raw. Yan. To your comment din, thank you for those that you updated us with dito. Thankfully, mabasa ang smishing sa mga messages na scammer.
Yeah. Isa pa yan, di ba, yung mga job offers na lumalabas na and you have to wonder where they got that database, who they're sending it to. And as Dito said, what kind of mashups have they done? Pinapadala ba nila yung mga college graduates lang?
Really.
Or yung mga vaccinated lang?
Because recently, dalawang bangko that I've never transacted with, sending this promos on
Well, yun obviously Lito, yun yung shotgun, Shotgun. They just blast all of you, whether you're not you're a depositor or not, in the hopes na makatama siya, baka may account ka nga naman doon. So yung phishing kasi, I know, sorry, napaka tedious. Black delete. I was looking at sa UK, they have a cybersecurity. I forgot the exact organization. Ano nga yan, Tolites? UK something.
I can't recall the name.
You know how
right
they
now.
solve yung smishing? Pag nakakakuha ka ng smishing, forward it to one number. Tapos na. So it gets reported, it gets validated. So I was thinking, pwede nga, no? I mean, pero it would require a lot of cooperation with the telcos. Pero, you could make it into something more easy for people to do, no? And, well, right now, yun nga, no? Delete, block. Or kung gusto mo i-report your number, you have to get all the details and then go to the website, i-file mo ng report. It's so tedious, no? So I guess most would that, wag na, delete, block na lang ako ng delete block, di bali na. So I guess, we have to have those more easy and creative ways probably with the help of our telcos to make reporting easier.
Sabi nga nila, well, one of the theories, Dondi, Abet, and Lito is that ang ginagamit is a text blaster, no? So, it's sent to all within a specific area. Kasi nga election time kaya na-activate ulit yung mga...
But even then, I'm not sure, because even in our household, we have some of us got it, some of us didn't, yung mga kasambahay, hindi naman dumating sa phone nila. So, ano kayang baka college graduate na. I don't know, just speculating here, di ba? Pero, kasi parang yung job offer may couch in a certain way, di ba? I don't know.
Alam mo naman si Sam, pag nasabihang, dear I am an HR manager. Wait, here! Sino kaya to?
Nagpaalam na si Jay, ang ating most prolific audience tonight, no? Thank you for taking time to yung simpleng mamayan. Yan, salamat po talaga. I'll watch the recorded version. Sige po, pakipanood po yung version. And may ito, Globe is actually taking an abet to your comment, no? You can report the number of scammers to them. So
yeah, I know. I can. How easy is it?
Salamat, Jay.
Thank you, Jay, for staying with us.
Malaman niyang initiative na yan ng Globe. Tignan natin.
Correct. By the way, Dondi, related to to again 2022, right? Election year. Can we get your insights on what DPOs and CISOs should do, diba? Come election time or election season. Kasi maingay yan definitely, diba? Online. So
I think my network is on the I can't hear you.
Okay. Since we're talking about ibang topic na lang daw, sabi ni Dondi. No comment dun sa sila. Yung kasi yung aming topic when we went back on the cloud 3 episodes ago. So politics in the election. Si Dito actually ang ating resource persons because of his work as a NAMPREL DPO. Diba? Yeah. CIO ka rin, diba? Dito?
Ano
na? Di ba CIO ka rin ng CIO, Chief Information Officer ka ng NAMPREL.
Oo. Tapos may iba yung CISO.
Iba ba?
NAMPREL.
Pero double hat ng CIO DPO.
Tinanggal ko na kasi before being appointed as DPO, I also took care of security. Ngayon, yung role ng security, binigay ko na to somebody else.
Yung pala. Oo, tama.
May babalikan lang ako dun sa, I'm sorry, going back to the banking scam. Kasi yung again, we're not going to mention the bank. Merong we all know it's a good practice to periodically change your passwords, correct? Pero sila, again, this is probably a business call. The usual security is inversely proportional to usability. Pero meron kang option to waive the change password.
Oh, yeah.
So parang, okay, kung lalagyan mo ganun, syempre, gagawa naman ako ng bagong password. I mean, it's so tempting to just waive, di ba? And then you reuse your old password. So you're totally defeating the purpose of it in the first place. Right? Naglagay ka pa ng password expiration, tapos inaalaw mo rin naman pala na i-waive, di ba? So second point is, yung money transfer application, yung sinasabi mo kay Mr. Nagoyo, di ba? Again, we need to confirm this, pero upon dun sa ibang mga nagsabi sa akin, na-confirm daw nila, basta tama yung account number mo, kahit fake yung name na ilagay mo, tatanggapin. Ayun. So, parang in the first place, shouldn't there be an automatic check between the depositor name and the account number? So, if you are able to do that, ibig sabihin walang check na nangyayari. So, kaya nga. So, kaya maraming Mart Nagoyo, pero iba-ibang account number. Yun. So, those are the 2 points that actually I saw in that particular breach. No? Again, of course, we need the answer or the opinions ng people involved or organizations involved kung if those were the facts.
Yeah. You're putting on your cyber forensics hat a bit, so.
Hindi, kasi depositor ako . Of both banks.
Lalo na, no?
Nasa KYC din ng mga bangko yan Lalo na if you can create an account online, dapat mas stringent nga yung KYC or e-KYC practices nila. Di ba?
That's perfectly fine. Pero, di ba? I mean, those are standard things that you need to verify before that transaction. Papa-OTP ka pa, tapos yun pala, kahit anong pangalan, pwede mong ilagay. Di ba? So, what's the purpose?
And again, to this point in our earlier discussion, before you went on air, no? Yung trust Again, yun ang kung abet ikaw, you're a customer of both banks, no? So, Dondi's all in the in the back end. But yun ang napakahalaga talaga. And you need to walk the talk, no? So, even on how you're going to conduct yourselves when a breach happens, especially when a breach happens, how are you going to resolve it, with your customers? How are your executives going to communicate, diba, to the public, And ako na feel ko ang sakit ng I mean, 'di ba yung the pain that yung post sa Facebook na yun, yung that girl who posted her experience sa napakasakit, 'di ba, na natutulog ka lang, hindi mo alam may kumukuha na ng pera mo. So, yun, very painful talaga yung
so kahit wala kang ginagawa, kahit you're very vigilant on using OTP, yung multi-factor authentication, you're not giving away any of your information, nakaka pa rin di ba? Kaya ang sakit I guess the other portion is gano'ng kabilis kaya ibabalik yung pera.
That too, Dondi, wala to sa IRR, no? Yung mga provisions
hindi lang
ng law,
hindi lang yung gano'ng bilis babalik yung pera. There were inconveniences suffered by the victims. So, halimbawa, well, not only are they required to go to the branch of account to fix it. Halimbawa, so doon pa lang gagamit ka na ng oras, gagastos ka pa sa pamasahe. Di ba? But what if meron kang payment due? And because na kulimbat nga yung pera mo,
tumalbog yung cheque mo, penalty ka, yari ka.
Exactly. Di ba? So those are additional costs. So, ang binabalik lang ang binibigay ng bangko, yun lang kung ano lang yung pera na nakuha. What about yun nga, yung cost of inconvenience and cost of other liabilities, di ba?
Correct.
So yun yung problema din dyan. And then yung pag-imbestiga nga, it's not customer-centric It's not client-centric. It's always the protection of the business. And this is not only true for the banks, but other businesses. Yung titingnan, kasalanan mo yan. Okay, even if you were vigilant in exercising security, di ba?
Alam mo naman, business to, let's say, sometimes the decisions are way above our pay grades. And there's some considerations that if they want to do that, at least yung accept the risk. Ayun, yun lang. Risk acceptance.
Again, yung ni Dondi on more regulations, no? Siguro baka more enforcement din. And then I'm not for I mean, but there really are some people who do not respect privacy rights. So yun na lang. And example lang yung mga loan shaming apps. I keep on going back there. Yun talaga yun. I think a lot of our friends we're looking for more penalties and faster resolution of the cases. But again, siguro itatanong natin to kay incoming chair John Henry next year, sana maimbitahan natin siya dito sa Privacy Fridays in our earlier episodes, probably January or February. Okay. So, yan, nabugbog na natin yung banking breach ngayong Q4 and pati yung smishing Dondi, anything else? So, yun nga,
actually, napakahitik ng mga statements ni Dondi. Super dami I'd like to comment on, pero kukulahin tayo sa oras
Pero
there was so much information doon Yeah.
Gusto ko yung data supply chain approach talaga. You really need to trace where data is. Yung handoff specifically, dito kasi nagkaroon ng handoff Tatlong handoff to if we're going to track it, From the source bank, then from the transfer bank, and then from the destination. Di ba? Actually, baka mayroon pa beyond yan, syempre. The money was being laundered. It was ill-gotten. So, and for all you know, itong Mark Nagoyo nito, baka wala to sa Pilipinas. Anyways.
Hindi, yung data supply chain, doon ko nga ina-apply yung idea ng data supply chain doon sa current engagement ko, Because yung client ko nga is not is a processor. No? Hindi siya yung controller. Okay? And then data gets passed on to him. Yung personal information gets passed on to him. And he also passes it on to a third party pa, no? For necessary processing. So, doon ko hinahanap. And yun ang hindi nga, ang challenge nga doon is yung mindset ng mga tao doon sa company is hindi, ito lang yung trabaho namin. Pag napasa ko na, parang wala na akong pakialam. Di ba?
Correct.
Okay.
Kaya ano?
Ganun din, pasa ng controller to the processor. Teka, tinanggap ko lang yung data ito lang yung gagawin ko. Pero, kung may security breach from the controller's end, anong gagawin ko as a processor? Di ba? Where does my responsibility end and begin? Di ba? So, that's the challenge do sa supply chain analysis ng data.
Kaya ang best practice sa PIA, di ba? You plot the data flows, no? Of the business processes. Yeah. Yun talaga yung isa sa kasi makikita mo talaga if you draw it. And di ba yun, no?
Kasi ang nakikita lang doon sa data flow, halimbawa, if I'm the company, yung process ko lang. Sa supply chain is you look at the process of the others. How the data gets to you, how do you deliver the data to a third party, how you get it back, how do you give it back to the controller.
Right? Correct. Kaya maganda yung
mas mag-expand.
Correct. Yung data sharing agreements dito should have a technical specification on the data supply chain, di ba? Para talaga makita
yung protocols mo.
Dapat well-defined yung protocols, no? And then,
kasi doon mo nga, yung sinasabi ni Lito, where does it end and where does it begin, di ba? Ayan, i-define mo yan sa protocol. Otherwise, malilito ka talaga. And then, I think you mentioned fourth parties, no? Kung baga may third party ka na, tapos kumuha sila ng isa pang subcon, na hindi mo nakilala yon, pero kasi yung third party mo, yung subcon na kinuha mo, nag-subcon pa sila, di ba? So, fourth parties, etc. So, how do you build the trust in that whole chain when there are components that you do not see? You're not even aware of, you know? So,
dapat declare din nila yun, di ba?
But at some point, you have to identify, like, I mean, if we were to go into like I said, the dairy business, di ba? It's like, even the one who makes the glasses, di ba dati, yung gatas natin,
dati debote.
Debote, di ba? Oo, di ba? Parang, inuulit yun, nire-recycle yun, ano? How would you know that step in the supply chain, where the bottles are collected, cleaned, that you can trust that? Na pag may gatas ulit na bumalik, malinis yun, no? Now, I wish we could go back to those days like those, because sometimes you fix a problem with a new technology. In this case, it was plastic bottles, di ba? Without realizing 10, 15 years from now, ang laking perwisyo ng plastic, di ba, sa environment natin, sa buhay natin. No? So that's where we have to be careful that the solution does not become the next problem.
Correct. Nag-crave tuloy ako ng gatas ng kalabaw dahil sa nakwento ni Dondi. Napakulo ko lang yun. Ay, nandito na yung hinihintay natin, Dondi.
Yan.
Oo. Ito, may gatas pa to sa labi.
Dahil kakainom niya lang ng gatas.
Itong ating guest na to. Oo. Di ba? So, he needs no further introduction. Ito na, buti umabot po. Alam nyo, si Lito, sinundo pa siya online. Kaya yan. Ating
sa Metaverse, sinundo ni Lito sa
Metaverse. Sinundo sa Metaverse to.
Sa Metaverse.
Sa Ross Boulevard. Malapit doon. Dito na po.
Metaverse?
Okay. Dondi, paki-introduce naman yung kabatch mo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce the first Privacy Commissioner of the Philippines. He's certainly visionary. I can tell you that a lot of what I've discussed with you tonight, that's also it's also something that um, he was able to look at, no, because uh, in order to create this ecosystem, no, that we have here in the Philippines for data protection, there's so many angles that you have to look at it, no, and from the regulatory, from the private sector, from the industry side. Thankfully, no, we were able to learn, no, we saw how Singapore did it, we saw how other countries have done it, and Hong Kong, no, we learned from them. But later on, they started to learn from us because our chairman, Privacy Commissioner Mon Liboro, is really a world class privacy practitioner. And towards the later part, of his term, he would introduce innovations, into the world of privacy regulation. So I remember back about exactly 2 years ago, we had the Asia Pacific Privacy Authorities, no, APA Forum in Mactan, Cebu. And I told Mrs. Liboro, your husband deserves an award not just from the Philippine community but from the global community for what he's doing. Uh, Ganyan kalaki yung mga contribution ng next guest natin. And he's also been recognized, no? Because even the Global Privacy Assembly named him chairman, of the COVID-19 task force. Because all of these privacy regulators, they saw with this pandemic, napakadaming data collection, napakadaming opportunities for data misuse, and abuse. No, that we have to have someone who's uh, coordinating what all the regulators are doing worldwide, so we can learn from each other, no, and send out best practices because all countries are being hit by this pandemic, no, and we have to have a way to make sure that we're all learning from each other. And the chairman, who they selected for the task force, is none other than our next guest. It's my honor to introduce the first, Privacy Commissioner of the Philippines, Raymund Enriquez Liboro.
Magandang gabi po.
Yun!
Citizen
Good
mo na
evening.
nakalagay.
Finally made it, Mon.
Yan, medyo may audio challenge tayo ng konti.
Oo. Hindi ka na marinig, Chairman. Oo. Oo. Kung ayaw pa.
So,
Audio challenge naman.
correct. So,
Yun.
All right.
Yan.
Yun!
Oh, there.
Uy, nawala ulit.
Wala pa rin.
Wala ulit.
Nawawala.
Nawala, Mr. Chair.
Masyadong sophisticated.
Oo.
So malapit na ang reward ni Chairman Liboro. I'm sure yun sa mga nakabalita kaliwat kanan na ngayon ang offer niyan. para si Dondi. Ayan, ako.
Alright, hello, ito. Pwede ba?
Yan, okay yan, Chair.
Yan. We can hear you.
Sammy, right?
Yeah,
Dito.
we can hear you.
Better,
Nawala lang yung
better.
audio. Oo, yan. Nawala lang yung audio. Yan, better.
Better ba siya? Better?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Kasi, naku, mas gusto
Welcome
nito
back,
yung
sir.
mas primitive. Abet, hi, good evening, Lito, Sam, and
Good evening.
DEPCOM Dondi. Thank you for that, again, very effusive introduction. And magandang gabi po. This is Citizen Mon Liboro.
Kaya pala citizen yung nakalagay doon.
But really, and ipapasalamat ako sa lahat. As you all know, of course, no, I've stepped down as the country's Privacy Commissioner. A new Privacy Commissioner has been appointed, right? It's none other than Privacy Commissioner John Henry Dunaga. And yun, that kaya po, again, supportahan nyo natin siya, no? Ang ating bagong Privacy Commissioner. Pero again, DEPCOM Dondi, no? Gusto ko lang malaman ninyong lahat, no? And nung pong nalaman ko yung hinihintay ko na yung formal, no, na pagpapadala po ng appointment. Pero nung dumating ho yan kahapon, ito, totoo to, no? Ang una kong tinawagan si DepCom Dondi. Siya at si DepCom Ivy Patu, right? Kasi totoo po yan. Hindi ho ako, yan po, siya po ang una kong tinawagan, no? Nang officially nakuha na po natin yan. And I thought it's but fitting, no, and proper na yung po mga nagsimula po nito na kasama ko ay sila rin, no, na una makaalam din, no, na yung isang significant development sa NPC at parang DepCom Dondi, no, na parang pagtatapos ng aming nasimula, no, yung amin lang nasimulan, no, yung po yun, at yung pagpapasa naman ito sa susunod. So yung si DepCom Dondi ang nung time na may lecture daw si DepCom IB kaya hindi ko siya at later on nagano kami. But you know, and sabi ko nga mas maganda tong usap natin ngayon, Sam, Abet at Lito and DepCom Dondi, no? Kasi di ba, mas makakapag-ulat ako, no? But at the same time, yung ways forward. Nung kaninang umaga na naimbitahan ako sa isang event, I must admit, nagdalawang isip ako dito kasi syempre sabi ko hindi na ako ang privacy commissioner right? Baka lang alam mo yun, na medyo parang nakakaalangan, di ba? Pero naisip ko yung yung advocacy, dapat hindi ito walang posisyon, designation, di ba, whatever, di ba? Siguro kami ni DepCom noon, well, dahil may posisyon, di ba? Merong opisina, di ba? O di ba? Or sabihin mo na, merong official na titulo. Pero tamo si DepCom Dondi, pagka nanamlay ba siya? Hindi di ba? Lalong naging masigasig So, sana ganun tayo kasi nga bagong bagay ito. So, kung tayo mananamlay dito, Sam, no, Lito and Abel, sino pa ang titingin, no, or mamumuno para dito. So, I hope na napapakinggan. Ilan ba nakikinig sa atin? May 10 ba nakikinig sa atin? Sam, hindi naman. Joke lang. Ha?
Mga 11 naman daw.
Mga 11.
That's true. The advocacy doesn't stop with the position.
Oo. So kaagad, no? Sabi ko nga, walang pagkakaiba to. Kaya I picked up, quickly, where I left, officially, and right now, I'm in front of you. So, sayang, hindi ko na-catch kanina. I'm sure DepCom Dondi, again, pag ititignan mo yung trajectory not to batter the toast ni DepCom, but if you see yung trajectory, di ba, makikita mo yung tao may commitment dun sa ginagawa, di ba? And nung na siya sa amin, nakita niya na mas mabuti talaga yata ma-spur yung private sector, yun yung ginawa niya, nag-expand yung ecosystem, and right now, and he's a regional leader, of Citibank. Alam mo, DepCom, ang isang pride natin, di ba? Yung mga nauna, even yung marami na ngayon, yung mga galing sa companies, kasi si Lito, Sam, panay kayo, hindi kayo company based talagang parang advocates na pero yung mga sila, di ba, DepCom Dons, mga regional leaders na rin na-appoint sila.
Mga Pinoy na
alam mo,
sa Europe.
Correct, and so, alam mo, sobrang pride yun, pag minsan nakakausap tayo ng mga banyaga, mga counterparts namin ni DepCom Dondi. And they speak highly of yung mga Filipino DPOs. no? Mga nandun sa California, IBM, di ba, DEFCO, no? Yung mga insurance, no? In fact, meron kaming kaibigan nga ni Sam, no, na dapat siya na ngayong first DPO, no, na nakuha from the field. Kumbaga first, ano bang tawag doon? First human export. No, because she was she was chosen, no, nag-global search ang isang company in Germany. Siya ang nakuha, biro niyo. DPO dito. Kaya lang hindi nga natuloy dahil nagka-COVID. So hindi na ano yun dahil doon pa lang sa it was really she was bound, no, to leave already. Biro mo yun sa 10 daw na global search na na-trim into sa 10 sila. Siya yung nakuha. So and I think pag kinakausap natin yung mga counterparts natin and even yung mga regional HQ persons or chiefs even, they look at yung mga Filipino DPOs kasi as a very pragmatic, hands-on, operational type of DPOs. Right? So, yun eh. No? So, kaya nga ako, yung even yung sinasabi ni DEFCOM Dondi na brand of leadership, yung brand of approach, yun yung in-inject natin sa global sa Global Privacy Assembly. So, ito na ba yung aking Sam, in-introduce na ako ni Dondi, pero yun nga, but siguro this should steer the discussion. Kasi, ito, kwentong na lang ito. Sa mga nga pagkwentuhan. Alam mo, mahirap kasi natin ng araw, doon magkwento tayo, tapos, mayroong, mamaya bukas nasa dyaryo ka. As the commission. Di ba, parang maalangan ka rin, baka bilang na araw mo di ba? So, wala na akong araw na bibilangin namin, di ba?
That's true.
Graduate ka na rin, graduate na. Oh.
Di ba, graduate na tayo, DEFCOM di ba? So gano'n, and nabanggit mo nga yung COVID-19. Ito na, mga na to, na stories in the trenches ito na, di ba? And I hope ma-appreciate ng mga kasama natin. So, even sa Global Privacy Assembly, na lalo na nung nangyari yung COVID, no? So we were meeting yung executive committee, and lahat kami nag-PPH. It was such an unfamiliar pandemic. Di ba? Wala naman talagang di ba? Parang sigurado lang natin noon, unprecedented collection of health data mangyayari dito. Sa unprecedented use of technology. Dahil wala mga taong, they cannot rely on anything else, di ba? But they're but technology we anticipated. Dapat very critical doon kasi yung posture ngayon ng authorities in such an unfamiliar situation. I mean, the GP has been there for the past 50 years, di ba? We have not encountered, di ba? So, a situation like this. So, this in itself is a conjuncture, no? Parang very new, right? And we were, so ganun. But, dito, and DEFCOM Dondi, I could really, but when nag-contribute tayo na tanong ako, ano ba dapat ang role ng authorities? Kasi the GPA, ganyan yan no? So it sets the tone and then cascades it, di ba? Kasi talagang even worldwide, everybody's looking up, no, for direction. And then I said, sabi ko sa panahon na ito, ang authorities must really be versatile. And I said that we should be both an enabler and a protector. And that itself captured yung and I think at yun yung naging tone globally. So Liz Denham, Dondi, of course, our friend na dating UK ICO, became GPA head and yun ang naging, if you will look at lahat ng mga lumabas doon, no? Kasi that was really and I thought that very important for all authorities then is to have a seat at the table, di ba? While all this is happening, right? At hindi yung privacy, hindi siya maging victim also, di ba? Kasi pwede siya maging casualty at the wayside and that was, di ba, DEFCOM, no? And ba? Yun yung unang
employee monitoring.
Oo, mga ganun. Tapon na natin yan, di ba? Hindi mahalaga yan Yun yung unang, after COVID, after the virus, di ba? Yun yung susunod na casualty. privacy. Di ba? Pero nilaban natin. Di ba? And we provided a very lucid, I think, direction. And also here, no, we endeavored, we came up with the most number of bulletins, guidance, to guide us, no, to guide everybody. And one thing, and right now, as head of it became now on the first year of the campaign, it was a task force, no, then it became a working group, and right now, DEPCOM Dondi, nagmorph na siya into data sharing for the public good. So it became now, it now became an almost permanent working group under the Global Privacy Assembly, meaning yung nasimulan natin is now actually a permanent agenda for the GPA. So, having said this, sabi ko nga, napakalaki ng potential. NADPOP, DPOs, no? Sabi ko, unang isipin natin lagi, nagsisimula pa lang tayo. Diba? Nagsisimula pa lang tayo. Pero ang laki ngayon ng and DEPCOM Dondi, immerse ngayon siya sa I'm sure they're doing forecast and everything. Diba? Napakalaki ng challenges na hinaharap. At the same time, always, diba, malaking opportunities sa Abet at dito. No? So, doon sa atin, sabi ko nga, I'm sure sila DEPCOM Dondi sa regional sa bank, no, where he works. Itong recent China law, right? Itong recent na respecting India.
Yep.
India, of course, Thailand and Indonesia, but naantala lang because of COVID. No? But let me tell you, no, yung India itself, no, there's a civil society group, no, that's really backing the development, no, and final enactment of the Indian law, no, the comprehensive law in India, and itong group na to, and the NPC, we're constantly in touch, recently about this, kasi humihingi rin sila ng sa atin, ng guidance. Imagine India.
Yeah.
Humingi rin sila ng guidance sa atin. So, tinitingnan nila paano ang ginawa natin. So, maraming aspeto. Yung mga groups ng DPOs, Sam, na courtesy call sa akin, yung from PAGCOR. Yung PAGCOR, meron silang DPO office na doon. Marami is very active, very sila. But, nag-uusap pero, tinatanong kasi nila rin, ano ba impact nitong China law nito dito sa mga Pogo? Di ba? Oo nga, di ba? Ano ba ang dito? Paano ba to? Di ba? So, and sila rin, yun yung level of, dati akala natin, yung sabi natin years back, di ba? Parang napaka-local, di ba? Parochial, isipin mo gano'n. But hindi na totoo rin, di ba? When you think about it, sige, nga naman, paano yung Pogo na nagbibigay ng yung companies dito na tumatarget ng Chinese citizen? Yun yung number one,
Definitely, may extraterritorial.
If you are targeting Chinese citizens, pasok kayo dito. Ano ngayon yan? Diba? So, these are exciting times, I think. And these are, again, as Liboro, the DEPCOM has been also telling everybody, it's now really present in every facet now of human activity, right? So, the more that this advocacy will expand, it had some benefit of coming in the gate quite late in a way, right? But right now, diba? Some are coming in just later, ngayon lang. So, and for DPOs here, why am I so bullish about this? Kasi in the coming years, you will now see privacy regimes in hyperscale. And these are India, China, hyperscale na yan. So, if you look at, ititingnan natin, even in the GPA, correct mo ako dito, DEPCOM Dondi, even population-wise, ang population natin, Abet, 110, di ba? Million. Pag tinignan mo yung population sa buong mundo, from pinakamarami hanggang pang-13 tayo. Pang-13 tayo. And doon sa unang 12 bansa na pinakamalalaki, 2 pa lang ang may batas, US at Mexico. US not even comprehensive kasi sila, electoral sila. Ngayon pala lang iniisip. So meaning, napakaraming bansa ngayon, so you're not talking of India, Indonesia, mas malalaki sa atin yan eh. Right? Katabi natin at 12th place, I think, Japan, or 14 sila in terms of population. Diba? So nandun tayo. We're just right in, and if you look at makikita natin ngayon, the big challenge ngayon is for yung privacies to be relevant in all those hyperscale jurisdictions. So in the case of India, for example, ang challenge nga nila, paano mo i-introduce siya sa 1.1 billion? Kinurek agad ako, 1.3 na daw sila. Correction, sabi niyo, 1.3 na yan, di ba? So ang tendency ngayon, DepCom Dondi, nakikita ko na, di ba? Ang tendency talaga nila, parang sinasabi na mag-work lang dito, talaga latiguhin yung mga enforcement, ganun yung mindset, pero we approach it, hindi naman, we approach it differently. They're very interested in how we're doing it. Kasi nga, nakita nila, 110 million tayo eh. Nandun tayo sa kategorya ng, so, sa akin, there are jurisdictions inabutan namin ni DepCom Dondi sa Singapore. Ilan lang ba Singaporean? Right? I mean, best practices talaga, kung makikita mo, New Zealand, ilan lang ba sila? Australia, ganun din. Hong Kong, ganun. Pero magaganda kasi nga, so, may pinupunto ko dito. Yung approach natin, is something na whether, yes, we try to get talaga yung best practices, but we are setting our own best practices. Kasi wala naman tayong paggagayahan ng malalaking hyperscale jurisdictions. So there are some approaches na pwede sa kanila, pero maaaring hindi sa atin pwede. Diba?
Citizen Mon, i-adapt pa rin ba nila yung kulong method natin?
Yun ang gusto ng India. Ang gusto nilang tutuhanin.
And I think they should also put up, ito nga magandang association of DPOs, di ba?
Yes.
So I'm sure India gagawa rin yan, China gagawa rin yan.
Alright.
Magandang opportunity yan for NADPOP to have sister organization. Tsaka kayo patatuningin, Sam, Abet Lito, kasi what did you do in the Philippines? How can we do that also here in Indonesia, in India, ganyan.
Incidental pala DepCom Dondi, guys, kasi nagbukas tayo ng bilateral tayo with Singapore. So 2 years ago, nandun tayo sa Cebu. Ngayon, nag-expire na siya. So magre-renew. But ang isa talaga na yung exchange ng DPO, skills-wise content knowledge, about the DPO. So ang isang nakikita doon is really concrete activities na DPO groups in the Philippines meeting up with DPOs in Singapore. Right? So magkakaroon ng parang soiree.
Yun.
Yun. Hindi naman, pero go. Di ba?
Baka i-pirate yung mga DPO natin, Chairman Mon.
Well, hindi na pwedeng ganon, pero kasi maaaring mangyari yun dahil nga ang lahat naman niya magli-lead toward mutual recognition of certification. Diba? Agree ka doon, DepCom doon. Diba? Ultimately, ganun yan. So, pupunta yun doon. So, in fact, in the ASEAN, dalawa yung current na, I would say, again, very relevant sa atin, sa pool na talaga, yung model contract clauses, meaning companies here, now dealing with one another dahil wala pa namang, there's not even a patchwork of law. Dati kasi nireklamo nila, di mga patchwork of laws, iba-iba. Dito, maraming jurisdiction, wala pa talaga. Pero, so how do you ensure end-to-end protection of data? So, model contract clause is patterned after yung SECs ng ng Europe. Pero ang second na na-approve is yung certifications. Certifications. So, that would pave the way. So we should expect that. So we should expect that. And in fact, we should push for that kasi doon mas may bentahe tayo . may bentahe tayo. So ang DPO movement sa Philippines, first mover tayo niya. So tama si NADPOP doon. Diba? Maaaring matuto pa sila sa style natin. So again, parang kung bakit maraming bansa gustong Filipino nurses because of that extra care, di ba? Yung extra tenderness or tender loving care.
TLC,
di ba? Ganyan din dito. Nakikita ko. So seryoso, talagang sa mga nakikinig sa atin, na seryosohin natin to kasi nga po yung maganda na ho yung nasimulan natin, nandiyan ang NADPOP, mabuti mabilis na Pero yun yung may media bang kasama dito ngayon, Sam? Kasi lahat pala kayo.
Nakita ko
si Lito.
Meron bumati sa'yo. Ito galing to kayo na Art Maniego. Ito sabi ni Art, citizen mo na siya ngayon. Ayan, comment ni Art sa Maniego. Magandang gabi, Art sa Maniego. Kaibigan natin sa Manila Bulletin. Ito pa.
Andiyan ba si Art?
Nakatingin siya.
Sir Art, kanina kasama namin dun sa
sa forum.
Pati si Mike.
Si Mike yan, kumukusta na. Magandang gabi.
Hello, Mike.
Saka DPC Dondi. Sir, mukhang busy.
Sam, madadagdagan na naman yung natin, advisory council members.
Council member. Anyway, guys,
dalawa na. Ito yung si Dana. This is how I spend my Friday nights listening to you guys, no?
Thank you po.
Si Dana.
Si Dana. Si Billy Nina, nung magsasalita si Dondi, nag-set hi. Yan. Magandang gabi.
Si Billy.
Raymund, meron tayong listeners even from Davao, yan, from Bicol.
Cebu.
Wow.
Cebu,
kahit dinaanan ng bagyo, So, yan.
Alam mo yung just to again siguro yan but really yung nila iniwan ko na dahil nandiyan na sa NPC yun. But really the aim of itong coming year and beyond is for the NPC yung digitalization ng NPC, very important. Kasi nga we always have to think of innovation so that we can operate in hyperscale.
Yeah.
Parang isipin mo pag may ginawa dito ang may magandang ginawa ang Singapore, for example, isipin mo paano mo gagawin times 20 yun kasi maliit lang naman sila So laging and digitalization is key, pero very important is yung expanding that ecosystem. So I must admit, syempre, yung focus naging natin dito, it's a natural, would be, dun tayo sa, dito, nagsimula talaga sa sentro, sa NCR. Right? Pero, yun, very, we already started na yung this year and beyond, and even sa budget, ng NPC, na input na fashion na yung magkaroon na ng mga, ng offices sa region, at least Cebu and Davao. Para so ma-include yun even doon sa amendment ng batas DepCom Dondi, yung regional offices. So malagay din siya kasi talagang right, ang dami na, di ba, mga smart cities na outside Metro Manila towards that path. So yan kasama yon. And really expanding that ecosystem would also include the academe, diba? R&D, diba? Na dapat tumagos tayo sa mga in fact ito na lang siguro sa mga sa benefit ng lahat din na nakikinig. Hindi ko na sinimulan na nating regulatory sandbox sa policy framework. Yun yung and just today ito scoop niyo na to Art but just today the NPC met with the Department of Science and Technology. Right? Expand talaga siya na kasi for the regulatory sandbox, but really now to extend yung innovation and research and development on data protection and privacy to the academic network, right? We're also talagang even budget permitting, makapaglabas talaga ng budget para magbigay ng mga research grants to university. Nagsimula na to with the UP Law Center, for example, on the policy of the administrative fines. Pero we dapat talagang mapapansin mo DepCom Dondi, di ba, sa Asia Pacific, yung mga studies na on emerging technologies galing na sa university. No? IoT, AI, hindi ma-generate ng authority yun dahil talagang our resources will be very limited. Pero dapat in-expand na natin sila. Oo, yun yung nakikita ko.
Maganda yun. Kung may research grants, no?
Yun yung nakikita namin trend kasi lalo na sa emerging technologies, no? Ang nag-a-advance na mga universities. No? Yung AI, big data, robotics, no? Machine learning. Yung in Japan and Korea, makikita mo na involved na yung mga universities nila. So yun yung dapat mangyari. So again, yung innovation ecosystem ng government, private, di ba, and the academe, no? Yan ang dapat siguro mag-take root, no, in the next term or the next 6 years, no, for the development.
Definitely. Ito may tanong sa iyo again. Personal question from kaibigan si Art Samaniego. Ano ang gagawin mo daw sa first day nyo bilang ordinary citizen?
Sabi na nga ba itong si Art parang gusto maging nito eh.
Matutulog!
Talk show host eh. Sabi na nga ba si Sir Art frustrated talk shows. Hindi, sa first day niya bilang actually talaga ang holidays ng aking I was explaining this. DepCom Dondi na siguro nga hindi rin siguro na-realize ng alam mo din sa NPC, nakwento ko kay Sir Art ito no? Meron kaming tawag namin dyan, yung Privacy Panic Group. No? Well, co-communicator messaging platform siya. Pero yun? No holds barred doon. Meaning talagang lahat na nasasagap doon. So, kaya si Sir Art, suki yan doon kasi nauuna lagi si Sir Art sa mga biglang po-post yung sinulat ni Sir Art doon. So, yung Privacy Panic Group, kapag pumasok ngayon dyan yung feed, whether it's a customer feedback, a complaint, mga ganyan, or yun na nga, generally, lalo na pag lumabas yan, naging public interest na. Na yun? So the NPC springs into action. So, but really, what I'm DepCom Dondi, what I'm proud about naman is that we were able kasi to set kumbaga the systems, no. It's still syempre nagde-develop pa din siya, pero the guys there we left, no, they know the drill, no, so to speak. It's a I think it's a mindset and a framework that will guide the NPC in the years to come. Very important kasi kami nila DepCom Dondi, yun nga, no? Commissioners, they come and go, Even a
3-year term, may term.
3-year term,
Pero
yung
plantilla, yun ang
yun. So, the secretariat, the plantilla, may mention ni yun talaga, yan ang buhay ng NPC.
Tsaka, a lot of those who we interviewed and screened, no, during the first few months, talagang nandyan pa rin,
Nandito pa rin. Tama ka. Alam mo,
heartwarming yun,
correct. That's a very good observation. Nag-remain sila, no? Lahat, yung nandiyan pa rin yung original nag-create ng mga, of course, ng policies natin, tutulungan kami sa advisory opinions, no? Nandiyan, naglalabas ng mga security bulletins. So, yun din, so, sabi ko nga, ito, pag DepCom Dondi, siguro ngayon, dahil yung mga millennials dito, yung problema niya, may init ang sa trabaho konting pa lang, 2 years pa lang, lalayasan ka na Diba? Ganun sila Ganun sila Diba? Parang sa kanila, abit, ang trabaho parang lang, experience, diba? Parang isa lang set of experience lang ang trabaho, hindi na, so, sabi ko nga dito ba ko, no? And yung very valuable yung so, sa NPC nakita ko na yung dyan meron dyan, papasok, diba? Mag-fill out yan, 1-2 taon. Siguro sabi ko nga sa kanila, yung i-fill out nyo kung para sa iyo to, diba? Right? first 3 years. Pero ginagawa namin dyan kung doon, sinasagad namin sa trabaho. Diba? Kasi yun yung pinaka-stage na talagang malakas yung kayang pa magbanat ng buto sa amin, di ba? So sasagarin namin sa trabaho. Di ba? Ngayon, kung ma-realize mo para sa iyo yan, para sa itong privacy, yan. Ano na yan? Sige, ano na to. So, choose mo na to talaga na career mo, 'di ba? Dando na, no? Bumubuhos yung investment namin sa mga tao, training. So ganun din naman. Pero I think it's a very good na management wise. Kasi I'm saying this kasi for a very young organization with very limited resources, at ngayon, lumalaki pa itong industry na ito. Yung attrition will really be a problem. So, marami kaming tao, yun, nasa industry na yun. But that's part of the, it's part of the ecosystem, diba? So, pupunta sila. So, we have to put in place a system na mabilis ang onboarding, right? And then, mapiga mo sila, diba? Mapiga mo sila dito sa habang talagang bata pa or enthusiastic talaga sila. And then, pag nakita nila ng career nila ito, no, so we have also a human competency framework or a human competency program na ginawa. We have a year ago we had a new HR chief, and nag-implement ito, veterano siya in HR. So yun yan ang and really incentivizing is always kasama. DEFCON Dondi, benefits wise, yung mga employees din namin, at least inilalaban namin, yung makarta. Ang hirap, di ba? Sam, kaya nasa private, yung talent, it's very
talent retention.
There's a dearth, there's yung talent. Kaya ma-update natin sila to stick, dito sa career na sa.
Ito si
The
Sir
only thing
Mike.
you can do is increase the supply. Ganun din sa cybersecurity nawawala. Kailangan may steady supply kang pagkukunan.
Nagme-message si Attorney Mike Santos. Dondi, remember Attorney Mike? Of course. No?
Yes, of course.
He was our chief. And yes, Mike Santos is a classic case, no? Dumating sa NPC, naglolo, nag-evening classes, so working student, di ba, pumasa ng bar, and then now, Pisay siya, Philippine Science sa high school. Pisay ka ba, Sam? Pisay ka ba?
Yung kapatid ko yun.
Isa ka lang. Kapatid mo pala yun, Tama. Pero ito si Attorney Mike, no? So he now heads our complaints and investigation. Alam nito na pag tumawag ako, kailangan 3 ring lang. Diba? Kasi, pag naging pang-apat niya, naakusahan ko na siya, pinagtataguan niya ako. Kaya, 3 ring lang. So, alam na niya pag gano'n. And they also instituted DEFCON Dondi, quick response team natin, pinamunuan ng Attorney Mike. So, within 6 hours, nag-generate kami ng report. Right? So, and it's very, sa amin, we call it the responsive regulatory framework. Kasi nga, with that, then, natatriage namin yung case. No? Ano ba to? Policy nung ba ang kailangan nito? Ano ba ang kailangan nito? Kailangan ba nito?
Circular
lang, or advisory lang ba? Baka naman tapik-tapik lang ang kailangan nito. Kung Bolja, di ba? Sila rin, di ba? Gagawa sila ng fact-finding report. No? So gano'n. So, I guess the skill of as a privacy commission of this regulator, one thing that we have said with the DEFCON Dondi, hindi kami pwedeng one-trick pony, di ba? We are not one-dimensional, unidimensional, right? Hindi ang privacy cannot be implemented in a straitjacket. So we must be able to wield different roles. No? Are we a leader? No? Are we a complaints handler here? Are we a police? Or are we a standard setter? That is and we have identified those. So in any situation, it's always a question: kasi yung privacy panic dito, and guys, di ba? Ang susunod na stage yan, ano yung privacy dilemma? Kasi ano ba to? Di ba? Ano ba to? Kumbaga, do we lower the boom here? Di ba? Do we, ito ba, ano ba to? Recidivist ba to? o ano to? Are they willful, ganyan? Di ba? Or ano lang, no? Plainly talagang ignorant lang. Sa laki ng Pilipinas, marami pa yan. Right? So, kailangan ba ito? Ganun Ano ba to? Ano lang to? Knowledge lang ba? So, yun, di ba? Yung dilemma ng privacy. So, once we said that, put that into motion, ganun na siya. So, they are, kasi nga, more and more cases are becoming more complex.
Yeah.
Right? And, and because of that, I think we should link arms more. You guys, your expertise, pag-usapan namin yun Sir Art. And that in itself, si Sir Art Samaniego of Manila Bulletin, yung sa tech, mabilis yan yung aming public information officer din, and sila Mike Santos, nagkakaroon ng convergence, wala nang hindi na yung expertise, lalo na kapag yan yung nangyaring scam text halimbawa, di ba? Wala, hindi ka pwede magyabang na ikaw lang nakakaalam ngayon ito. Hindi mo, and even sa privacy sa NTC, we recognize that. Right? So, we have to really to dig deep, sa expertise nating lahat when it comes to that. So, we relied on Sir Art, diba? Yung mga unang, and mga ganon, and that is the lead. Kasi, like yung scam text, guys, diba? When you look at it, from Dondi, diba? Hindi lang naman siya, then na-realize namin, may data broker, may data aggregator, meron palang ganung di ba? Na pwede ka ng, right, na para siyang ad agency, na pwedeng mag-aggregate on behalf of a customer. Gandas di-deal pati yan sa, sa telco, di ba? Ilan na yung pinagdaanan na yon, di ba? Una, may kliyenteng kumuha, yung kliyente nakipag-deal dun sa broker or aggregator, di ba? O tapos yung aggregator, baka may kinausap pa ng isang broker, tapos binigay doon sa telco, ibinla ng SMS, di ba? Yung message itself, pag-click mo, dadalhin sa messaging platform. Sa messaging platform, pag nakipag-engage ka pa po, dadalhin ka sa online platform. Tapos pag nagbigay ka ng bayad mo, naloko ka, meron kang mobile payment facility na dadaanan. So, napaka-complex, di ba? Right? So, ikaw, DEFCON to. So, kita mo na, di ba, ngayon, meron namang data transfer impact assessments, di ba? May mga ganun na kasi you have now to really, pag minamap mo na nga, even the sharing, but there's really wide acceptance that data will be shared. So, paano natin diba? Population. Ang dami yung platforms na kagad yung para magpatawag ka ngayon doon. Ilan ipapatawag mo, imagine guys. Pinatawag namin si WhatsApp, pinatawag namin si...
We discussed this earlier. Si Lito nga was we talked about it like a data supply chain, tama, bawat transfer, tataas yung risk score mo So, pag nag-impact assessment ka, titignan mo muna. Basta dami nitong transfers, masyado nang mataas na risk. Do you accept that risk? Or do we just say, hindi, kailangan ibabayin natin. So, you reduce the transfers or you eliminate them or you don't do it anymore, and you do something else. Do it another way, Pero importante yung concept nun na i-score mo talaga.
Yeah.
Itong pinopropose mo na kontrata or project or proseso, ano ba yung risk score yan? Parang PIA rin, di ba? May high, medium, low risk, di ba?
Correct. Ito, TIA, Transfer Impact Assessment. Kasi, nag-o-offer ng various risks kasi nga because of the nature itself. Cross-platforms ka. Wala,
tapos
diba?
Baka ilipat mo sa isang kumpanya. Kaya maganda nga yung circular ng DSA. Ilipat mo sa isang kumpanya, sabihin mo, dapat yung DPO nyo co-signatory. Sabihin lang, wala kaming DPO eh.
Okay.
Nako, ano ba yan?
Red flag.
Right.
Red flag
Right.
na yan.
Diba?
Yung
Diba?
pala,
So,
yung pala.
maraming,
nga yung
maraming
pinapagawa ko.
maraming kaming like itong in-innovate ng ating Dondi, yung Compliance and Monitoring Division naman. Ang tawag nila ROSH, no? Tawag natin ROSH, yung Real Risk of Severity and Harm. 'Di ba kasi nga sa dami nito, para kung emergency room siya, 'di ba? Titingnan mo sino ba unahin mo diyan? Sino ba unahin mo, 'di ba? Ganun eh. Ganun ang alam mo ang bed sa emergency room kokonti lang. Pumila, ang dami, nakapila. Sino unahin mo? So titingnan mo siya. So gumawa ngayon ng matrix itong ating Compliance and Monitoring Division. Tawag natin ROSH. So Real Risk of Severity and Harm. Scoring din yan, DepCom Dondi, no? So ginagamit namin yan dito sa mga OLA, yung online lending app. Ang dami yan 200 plus. So merong merong nakikinig mo na kagad, i-score mo na. Sa 200 ito, sino uunahin natin? Kasi nga, otherwise, para kang, di ba, may naghahanap ng ng karayom sa di ba? So merong gano'n. Tapos, binibigyan ng weight, di ba? So, pag with that, kapag nag-zero in ngayon sila, at least nakaka-capture mo kagad talaga yung mga kailangan mong tignan, no? Yung may tataas talaga yung risk. So, again, as a regulator, now, I can say this, baga parang na to, the stories from the trenches, di ba? It's always a constant on how we can continue to maximize the limited resources that we have, diba? To become effective. Diba? And we can only do that by being risk-based, diba? And then really, diba, and quickly weighing, diba? Which risks should be addressed more immediately, diba?
So like an emergency room, triage mo na kagad.
So ganun, correct. So we have, again, yun yung mainiwan namin ni DepCom Dondi. Like, example, not all breaches are the same.
Yes.
Let me tell you now, diba? Hindi ito first come, first serve. If first come, first serve in the sense, yes, na pag dumating yan. Pero pag may dumating na large scale dyan, libo-libo yan, teka muna, diba? All bets are off, unahin natin to. Ganun po. Diba? Ganun yung, so, hindi mo siya pwedeng tignan ito natikitan mo, may ticket ka, first come, first serve. Right? So marami. But again, no, we have to, we have to innovate. We have to think of approaches like that, no. So hindi po siya madali. Not again as a regulator. That's how we thought, and that's what we left, no. What we built, no. Yung ganon. Nila DepCom Dondi.
May tanong ako kay Chairman sa kay Dondi, no? Ito para kay incoming Chair John Henry Naga. Anong ma-advise sa kanya? What you advise him? Marami yung napulot kay Chairman Mon, di ba? But again, siguro si Dondi muna. Kasi Citizen Mon is speaking. So, what can you advise to incoming Chair Naga?
The strategic plan is really important, no? So I think na-chart natin yung first 5 years of the NPC, no? Medyo take off na, no? Ang ganda na ng progression and innovation, So as we talk about 2022 and what are coming, the Metaverse, all these new technologies, no? Siguro it's important also now to have parang a strategic plan for the next 5 years ulit, no? Of course, you plan kasi 3 years yung term ng ni Chairman Naga, no? Pero maganda yung you look out, 5-10 years. Saan ba papunta tong data processing na to? Para meron kang inputs, to forecast the environment, so that when you come up with your strategy, kung kagaya nga sabi ng Wayne Gretzky, di ba? You don't skate to where the puck is, right? You skate to where the puck is going, no? So yun, no? It's important to have that kind of strategy in place, which we did 5 years ago nga.
Kami ni DepCom Dondi, I thought na DepCom Dondi, not to but we presented a very lucid roadmap nung nagsimula. DEFCON Dondi. In 2016, we hit the ground running, right? But I thought, diba, we presented a very lucid roadmap of where all this is headed. No? So it will start with firm level accountability and compliance, right? Wala pang DPO noon, guys, pero alam na namin, dyan sa sentro ang buhay ng DPO. DPO was still a concept sa GDPR, 2018 lang pinasok yun eh. But we were already, pinpointed namin nila doon yun.
Yep.
DPO ang dito, ang critical dito. 'Di ba? Kasi yun yung voice namin sa loob ng organization. So kung matatamnan namin ng DPOs ang bawat organization dito natin, 'di ba? Ando na eh.
Yun yung susi.
Nakita namin din na later on. Ito, sasabihin ako sa inyo guys, itong ito, gusto ko malaman ng lahat ito. That foresight, very important 'yon, no? Nakita namin noon na yung batas natin, 'di ba? Yung batas natin dumating ng 2012, yan ang kinakatakutan batas. 'Di ba? Dahil may kulong eh. And na-criticize din ng Philippines no kasi yung mga sa Europe, sabi bakit yung magkukulong ng tao, 'di ba? But inenak yun eh, 'di ba? Marami natakot doon, lalo yung mga BPO. Akala nila we will go to town building it, 'di ba? Ganon eh. In fact, they were so scared, 'di ba? They wanted to be outside the scope of the law. Tama, they were all sinasabi namin, wag ganon, no? Kasi bentahin nyo to eh. Masasabi nyo sa mga principals nyo sa this makes us really more resilient here. Right? Masasabi nyo dun sa mga customers, sa Pilipinas, mahigpit doon. Di ba? At yun yung nangyari. Mas pinagyayabang nila, mahigpit kami dito. Kaya. So, ayun. So, ano yung na-anticipate ni DEFCON Dondi, no? Na itong law na ito, dahil ito ay ang batas, malupit ang batas, kailangan magkaroon ng standards dito. Kailangan magkaroon ng baseline dito. Right? Doon pumasok yung certification. Doon pumasok yung first, he was there, oversight siya ng DSTSD. Remember that, DEFCON Dondi, Data Security Technology Standards. Pinasok namin yung ISO discussion that early, and during that time, doon pa lang binubuo yung mga work items on privacy. Doon pa lang binubuo yung work items. Sobra silang weird. Dumating yung National Privacy Commissions doon sa mga discussions sa ISO. Diba? Walang Privacy Commission na nandun. Bakit? And I'll tell you kung bakit. Bakit wala? Kasi, ang tingin nila sa ISO, masyadong technical. So may mga advocates di ba, yung sinasabi ng rights-based and risk-based Yung sa Europe, right? Ang nila dito principles-based ang ang privacy. Kaya dominated talaga ng lawyers yung discussion, yung discourse, diba? Yung mga ganon. Pero nakita namin in DEFCON Dondi, may kulong to eh. Yung mga companies natin, and even yung maghahanap yan, teka muna, paano kami hindi makukulong? Right? So ano yung accountability and standards? ISO noon ang pinaka. During that time, DEFCON Dondi, the ISO was not even in the agenda of the Global Privacy Assembly.
Saka InfoSec, ang focus doon was InfoSec. So talagang sinabi namin sa ISO, you have to have this on privacy management.
Noong time na yon, nagsisimula ang discussions, nag-aano pala, ang dami nating tayo nag-introduce sa work items on privacy management. Pag binasa niyo yung mga lalabas na mga ISO, hindi ko na naman enumerate yung mga nito. Marami diyang Pilipinas na nag-sponsor. So very akin doon sa laws natin, sa standards natin, yung nilagay diyan. Right? Yung na yan, There are some na like for example, PII, mga globally, yung terming it as PII, Ayan talagang long. Pero ang dami nating entry diyan. So, yung ISO, yung mga na lumalabas on privacy, heavily informed yan ng contribution ng Philippines. So much so that actually I'm the one reporting, the Philippines is the one reporting to the GPA on developments on the ISO. It was put in the agenda 2 years ago under Giovanni Buttarelli because again, as predicted ng Philippines, nung lumabas yung GDPR noong 2018 at merong 4% penalties ng financial, nagclamor yung mga kumpanya, teka muna, ano standards natin dito? Teka muna, i-assess nyo kami. Doon lumabas yung importance ng ISO. So nakita na nila, it became now real sa kanila. Yung risk-based approach really makes sense sa kanila. Hindi na ito pa pwedeng magdedebate ang mga abogado, di ba? May 4%. Di ba? So, ayaw nila mag-rely sa pagalingan ng abogado. Di ba? Kailangan teka muna, mag-set tayo ng standards dito. Kasi ano ba? Di ba? So, accountability standards, so pumasok na ngayon ito. So, marami na. No? So, Apex CBPR, they become now mga but ISO now is now being also promoted. And I'm proud to say, again, and we were the first, and they acknowledged that. They sent us a note, congratulatory note. They acknowledge the contribution of the Philippines in this international standards. And Dondi ngayon, marami ng commissions na uma-attend sa ISO. Kinil ng France at Germany, right? Na nag-follow. And really nung nagsisimula yan, ang tanging nandun lang na consistently was the Philippines. Was the Philippines. So I guess it is again the foresight nakita na natin ito ang mangyayaring trend, di ba? DPO sa sentro. Ito ngayon, DPO na ang buzzword sa Europe. Standards, maghahanap ng standards ang companies dito so hindi yung ilelesin nila yung risk naman sa kanila. So in all this, imagine yung Philippines has been in the forefront.
Pero meron ding gusto bumati sa isa pa ito, si JP Hernandez. Magandang gabi.
JP na grabe.
Security pa siya, di ba?
Grabe naman pala itong mo. Akala ko talaga 5 lang tayo dito, Sam.
Umabot ng 5,000 yung una nating show, Chairman Mon, nung guest ka. Pinakamataas yun. So,
kasi sa naka, sumusubo lang ako dito. Kabi ko na.
Okay lang.
Ayan.
Ito lang ang show na you can be yourself.
Definitely. Ito si Mike.
Ayan, si Mike.
Kain pa rin po kami.
Alam mo,
kasi nung umalis ako, sabi ko, be kind to each other.
ang pinaka ni DEFCON doon, ang pinaka patented na niyan, yung kanyang yung kanyang words of wisdom. Ano lang, 2 words lang po, 2 words lang. Be nice.
Tama.
Be nice. Yun ang kanyang huling.
I think
panalo
I think maganda yun kasi yung culture nga ng NPC which we see now is kailangan cohesive nga kasi I tell you lahat ng NPC staff na yan will be able to get jobs sa private sector diba? Mabilis mangyari yon. So I said it's important, be nice to each other. This is a family, it's a community. You'll see, kami mga commissioners, sabi ko, may term kami, at some point aalis kami, may replacement kami. Pero kayo, yung mga natira dyan, kayo yung mga magiging mainstay dyan sa NPC. Kaya be nice to each other. Be kind.
Be nice and be kind.
Yan ba, mga words of wisdom na ba sa mga
Pero actually na-inspire ako Maganda siguro i-promote natin ang Pilipinas as the home of compassionate DPOs, di ba? So,
natural ito di ba? Di ba? It's di ba even yung accountability ng retail companies, di ba? It's your duty of care, di ba? Do no harm. Talagang, and that's why also here, nag-take root yung sinimulan din namin nila Dondi, yung ethics Baka accountability, compliance, and ethics. And we thought that in a country of 110 million, with our background, right, at yung ating, culturally, fit tayo dun sa ganong approach Don't do unto others what you don't want to be done unto you. Right? The duty of care, di ba? Yun talaga at the very least na kailangan. Kasi, and this morning, pinag-uusap with all the recent events na nangyayari, right? And with all the Metaverse, di ba? Ang matatanong po ba, is this, ano pa ba? Tama pa bang approach yung I mean, yung privacy self-management can only bring you so far. Di ba? In fact, the approach na dinat na namin ni DepCom Dondi nung pumasok ang Pilipinas sa privacy, sa global privacy. It's all about privacy self-management. What do you mean by that? Yung consent, di ba? Yun yung una di ba? I-manage mo yun. So mag-consent ka, intindihin mo, manage mo, di ba? Yung cyber and privacy self-management. Kaya medyo nag-react ako dun sa nilabas ng ayoko na magano but pag nag-react ako dun sa statement na in fact newspapers na nga rin yung nag-define noon na kung hindi mo bibigay yung yung gano'n hindi ka
Chairman Mon. Nag-react
hindi ka mapapahamak. Nag-react ka ba doon, Abet? Di ba pero alam mo yung mas malupit na ito mga kasama, di ba? Mas malupit na siguro kung sumagot yung taong bayan na malupit o mas nakakatakot. No? Kung ang isagot ng sambayanan sige, para na lang hindi ako mawala ang pera ko, hindi na lang ako magde-deposito sa bangko. Di ba? Ayaw nyo pala mawala pera namin. So sa sinasabi mo sa akin, wag kang di ba? Wag mong bigay yung mo. Wag ko kaya bigay yung pera ko. Di ba mas safe yon, hindi na ako mawalan ng pera. Pero yun nga kaya nakaka-alarm kasi dapat hindi sana ganoon. Kasi right, dapat tingnan natin ito yung ng risk o ng responsibilidad ng bawat isa. Yung kanina topic namin nila Sir Arte, yung whole of society approach, because definitely this has really been so complex, right? But probably in siguro Sir Art, ang ganda ng discussion pero kulang na rin sa oras. Pero siyempre, for that to be resolved, it could be driven by the market, right? So yung mga customer, pupunta na lang sa mga, di ba, sa institutions na mas safe sila, mas magaganon. But regulatory wise, di ba? Gagawa rin, di ba? They could come up with regulation to spread the risk. Di ba? Sige, mag-share tayong lahat dito. That's what they did in India, DepCom Dondi, di ba? So doon nagkaroon sila ng doon na but this is for the Bangko Sentral. I don't want to delve into that. But nagkaroon ng intervention doon. No? Halimbawa, kung ikaw ay na biktima and you report it immediately, yung reimbursable mo mas mataas. Pag ni-report mo ng late, mas bumababa yung marireimburse sa'yo. Right? Kasi ganun yung nila. Na-spread, kumbaga may risk. Pero, very skewed, no? Pro-customer yung nila. Ang default is, hindi dapat yung customer. So, ganun, kung doon. Pero, I don't know kung paano yung mga banks. No? But I'm mentioning this kasi nga, as regulators, di ba? Right? Doon siya mag-i-intervene. So, right now, we're in the stage of kaya nga, no? We want to know what's going on. We want to know we have to be very evidence-based, di ba? Empirical, circumspect sa mga bagay nito. Kaya it's quite alarming na yung doon pa lang sa simula bilang ganun na yung framework, no, or formulation ng problem. Doon ka mababahala. But I guess again with everybody's on board, Bangko Sentral,
Yeah.
we will find, again, embrace a whole of society approach, mitigate risk.
So ito, si
Yeah.
Dean Cecil Mercado of St. Louis University, the DPO, Be Nice and Be Kind again. So, magandang gabi po, Ma'am Ces. O tama, sana naging be kind din and be nice yung mga responses ng mga And ito galing sa kay Rolly Lansigan. Ayan.
Oy, Doc Rolly. Oh.
Alas 7 pa pala siya nanonood dito. Doc Rolly, ngayon ka na nagparamdam, ha? On board na. Ayan, magandang gabi. Ito, isa sa mga sumunod kay Don dito. Sa yapak ni Don. Diba? Good evening, Rolly.
Grabe yan yung Rolly, diba? Alam niyo yung sinagsimula kami yan, ako po, naalala namin lahat yan, sila Rolly, the first time we saw them, kanya-kanya kaming pag yung pumapasok sa MPC noon, nandun kami sa basement ng DICT, wala kaming opisina. So sila, yung mga interviewees na si DepCom doon din, nag-interview sa kantin, sa cafeteria. So, ayan.
And then, that's why si John, I'm sure marami nga sa kanila, kilala rin nila si bagong chairman, John Henry Naga.
Yeah.
Kasi, yun nga nung nasa DICT tayo, nandun na rin si Yusek. Yusek siya no, at that time, sa DICT. Si
Yeah.
Henry,
Ang one thing, ang isang attribute ni DepCom John, siya, organizations guy siya. Yan, from the DICT, right? Talagang pati yung yung mga house fixing, ganyan. Ni DepCom John yan. Kailangan ngayon yan dito sa NPC, right? Kasi yun nga, it's really now yung secretariat as I mentioned earlier, we come and go, but really now focus on the secretariat. And by the way, we're on the verge of hopefully maano tayo ng ISO, we're undergoing certification right now. So hopefully by year-end we will get certified or little beyond that. Pero that again is our effort to really come up with the systems and protocols para everyone knows the drill. So as we come and go, as the people, diba, alam yung systems and processes. So I was asked today, what will happen do sa mga cases now, may mga malalaking cases. Well, guaranteed ng ang follow through, because we have systems in place, and gagana yan, kahit na kakapalit pa lang. And of course, DepCom John is an organic within the MPC. He's been with us for 2 years already. He has held some very key roles within the NPC during that period. He handled the finance and admin. He handled our data security technology standards. Nandun yung ADASCO, data security and compliance. Very siya. He saw all the kaya I'm happy that siya yung napili. Very able si DepCom John. If you look at yung pagdaanan talaga niya, right? He was a lawyer, litigation, telecoms, very wide perspective.
And
so
then I guess DepCom
open there's an open position, diba?
Kasi na-reappoint si DepCom Dino, so may isang open.
Yeah, that's correct, yun. So, ayan.
DepCon dito. Pwede ka na.
Kasi dalawang lawyers na sila Maganda may isang
dito.
Para si Dondi. Ang sarap ng ating kwentuhan So, ito talaga purposely naging tribute talaga kay Chairman Mon So, now Citizen Mon Liboro. And maraming salamat sa mga kabatch sa NPC naglabasan sila lahat online. So, but again, Nagdi-dinner pa si Chairman Citizen Mon. But ito, to the end of show, normally what we do, Chairman Mon and NADPOP Dondi, is that we pick one major thought, or one major idea that pop up during the show. So tanongin natin, Abet, sa kinuwento ni Dondi sa ni Chairman Mon, no? And dito, ano yung tumatak sa inyo? Yun lang.
Ang dali naman ang tanong mo, Sam.
Ang
Mahirap pala
dami.
maging commissioner or DepCom commissioner. Mahirap pala nito. Pero ang pinaka, well, I'm mighty proud of. I mean, you can actually say now, di ba, that even kahit isa lang or konti lang that have reached that level of expertise in data privacy, mission accomplished, sir, eh. Di ba? Konti na lang, mag-export na tayo ng DPO, eh. So, I think yun yung, I mean, to me, as a value nung what the commission or what the law had created is the awareness and career, sir, career, no? Talagang gumawa ng career yung yung data privacy, eh. Kaya that's one of the highlights that I take away. And of course, no, ang sarap yung mga stories from the trenches, yan yung mga interesting pakinggan, eh, yung mga kwento. Kaya all we can say is, wow, congratulations, DepCon Dondi, Chairman Mon. I mean, the depth of all those things you have to go through, the experience. I'm sure you had fun, kahit konti. But we owe you a lot, and what fitting way than to congratulate you both, and thank you. From the first moment that I sat down in a chatter and saw, oy, may data privacy, ad, sabi ko, talaga. So to a couple of years later, I mean, man, leaps and bounds, sir. Kudos po.
Yeah, thank you, Abet. Ito naman, from beauty to age, yan dito. By the way, Chairman Mon and DepCom Dondi, si Lito ang ating godfather of cybersecurity. Yan.
Ano ba yan? Actually, well, matagal na nga rin trinabaho itong data privacy. We were just lobbying nga in Congress noon. It was really a challenge understanding this privacy concept.
Yep. So, pangarap lang natin yan sa iTech noon, 20 years ago, di ba?
iTech.
Oo, pangarap lang yan noon.
Yung una namin sinulat sa iTech, dalawa, yung Cybercrime and yung Data Privacy Act.
Oo. And then as we went along, yun nga, natutunan. And then finally, napasa nga yung batas. And yung parallel effort nga dyan is promoting yung InfoSec, which gradually grew into cybersecurity din. But the funny thing is, while yung sa cybersecurity practice nun, talagang umarangkada na. Since 2012, lalo na nung na-convene yung NPC in 2016, it was privacy that drove cybersecurity. So na-drive din siya at the time. So tapos yun nga, there was confusion at the beginning. Ano ba itong privacy protection? Ano ba itong cybersecurity? Di ba? Pero yun, niliwanag din ng team ni Chairman Mon tsaka nila DepCom. Sina DepCom Dondi tsaka DepCom ID. Niliwanag din yun. So that's how we have shaped it. And then, because of this then, yun nga, medyo nag-branch din ako doon sa practice. Yung sinasabi ng risk management approach, actually, yung ginagawa ko ngayon, nagte-take off pa rin ako doon sa business continuity. Impact assessments, yung mga ganyan. So kung ano man yung napag-aralan ko nung una in terms of business continuity, InfoSec, ina-apply din sa privacy. Okay? Kaya nga biglang pumasok kanina nga, hindi ko nga alam yung idea ng data supply chain. Kakadiscuss ko lang nun sa kliyente ko, ito yung supply chain nyo. So there is a lot of learning really, in the development learning din na in-introduce yung NPC over the last 5 years. And then going beyond, the challenges, yung nakikita naman natin, yung magiging #1 challenge nga in the future is this Metaverse. And then of course, part of that is AI, yung weaponization of AI. Diyan papasok yan. No, yan din yung lagi ko rin sinasabi na weaponization of AI, machine learning, and quantum computing. Quantum computing is coming in na rin. No? So yan yung mga challenges na haharapin natin in the future. And I guess the foundations that we've laid down in the last 5 years, the NPC has laid down in the last 5 years, will very much dictate how we will handle and how we will address yung AI, machine learning, and quantum computing in the future.
Chairman Mon, Kung Dondi, may side kwento ako dyan. Magkapatid yun eh, yung cybercrime law, cybercrime bill, tsaka data privacy law. Both came from our subcommittee from the late attorney Lalen Parlade. So, through the years, okay, napasa, okay, malapit na. Pero di ba napansin nyo, ang daming reklamo sa Data Privacy Act, sa Anti-Cybercrime Bill, right? Tapos yung Data Privacy Act, wow, smooth, dire-diretso, walang nabawas, walang nadagdag. Kasi daw mas sexy daw yung cybercrime, kaya mas maraming atensyon. That in a good way. Okay, so unscathed. So kaya yung magkapatid na bills na yun yung sinimula namin ni Tolites sa iTech.
10173 and 10175.
Magkasunod.
Yeah.
Ano yung nakasingit? Ano yung 10174?
Yun ang di ko alam. Pero nawala sa numbering, no? Pero
I-research natin, no?
I-contest
Ipa-contest natin yan. Thank you, Abet.
DepCom Dondi, kung tayong pioneers, kasama pala natin dito, mga founding fathers talaga to. Si Lito.
Godfather.
Si Attorney Lalen, God bless his soul.
Yes.
Attorney Lalen, yes.
Thank you for that story, Abet. Ito, daming trendy story. Ako, I'm looking forward to the books of Chairman Mon and DepCom Dondi. Yung isusulat ng libro in the future.
Yan.
Aantayin ko yan.
May ginagawa ko libro, pero on marriage counseling, Sam?
Pwede rin, kailangan ni Abet yun.
Yeah.
Ako naman, isa lang talaga napulot ko ngayong gabi and nakuha ko yung pareho kay DepCom Dondi Chairman, no? Tuloy-tuloy ang advocacy. So, with that po, Dondi and the Chairman, maybe you'd like to give your closing statements or yung Christmas.
Sige, ako muna, no? So,
Dondi muna and then Chairman.
yeah,
Sige.
again, we consider ourselves really in the Philippines fortunate, no, to have such a good leader, a visionary, a thought leader, someone who was able to mobilize. Sige mo, no, from 3 people, tatlo lang kami noon. No, he led the NPC to becoming the robust world-class organization that it is today. And not just the NPC itself, but the whole country, no? Napasama niya, di ba? Napa-align niya yung mga efforts, no, of the DPO, of the various sectors. And of course, even globally, no? I was noticing, no, because I handle 17 countries in my current role. And I was always looking for guidance, no? What is Australia saying about employee monitoring? What is Hong Kong saying about collecting vaccination data? What is this country or that country? And then yun, talagang nakita ko na una yung Pilipinas, no? So we are really leaders, on a global stage. So Chairman Mon, thank you again, no, for the past 5 years, no? And I'm happy that you're now going to be able to relax a bit, spend more time with your family, because not only he was a very hard worker. No? So yun talaga, parati every time I go into the NPC, I say, the hardworking ladies and gentlemen of the NPC, because that's how the leader drives it. No? The leader sets the pace. No? And you can compare it to any other government agency. I think, the one example is the quick response. One example is just the number of circulars, advisories, that have been churned out by the NPC. Yung advisory opinions, di ba? Kumpara mo lang the number of people in that agency compared to the amount of work and the amount of change that has been done. No? And we owe it all to the leadership of Raymund Enriquez Liboro. Maraming salamat po.
You here?
You're here.
Well,
Hindi pa
that,
Sir
that,
Raymond, marami na ba offer? Marami na.
pero DEFCON Dondi, no, again, kaya nga yung kumbaga, meron nang nahira, no, nabasbasa, na tapos na yung aking, that ended that phase, and sila, si DEFCON Dondi, DEFCON ID, ang una kong sinabihan. But anyway, sabi ko nga, siguro sa lahat sa atin dito, no, guide na lang din sa atin moving forward. Minsan natatanong kasi sa dami ng nangyayari, di ba? Kailan naman nakikialam si NPC? Siguro para sa lahat na nakikinig sa atin, mga DPO sa mga sakumpanya. Simple lang naman ang rule of thumb namin sa NPC. Basta involved ang personal data, basta may taong apektado, makikialam. Titingnan yan. It doesn't mean naman lahat yan na magli-lead sa kaso, ganito, no? Hindi. No? Pero kailangan namin titingnan namin yan. Right? So, dito sa kasong to, di ba? Dami nagsasabi itong mga, bakit pinakikialaman pa yan? No? Cybercrime yan eh. Di ba? Ano yan eh? Di ba? Masyadong pakialamero si NPC. Pero kami nila Mike, sila Rolly nung nandun pa. Basta may personal data, may impact sa tao, na nasasaktan ng tao, titingnan natin. Diba? So, doon na lang. Saka na nitatrayad sa amin, cybercrime yan, sa ano yan. Ano? Diba? Pero gano'n, Kasi, yun ang, we have to develop that, yung gano'n na ng AI. Baga sa doktor, isang tingin mo pa lang doon sa pasyente. Doon mo ma-develop yun, Diba? Isang tingin mo pa lang, pang ano to, ito yung, right? Kasi kung, again, kaya yun yung naging pamantayan namin dito. So, sa lahat na nakikinig sa atin, right? Yun lang naman no? So, kung ayaw natin mapatrobol sa NPC, unang-una, DEFCON Dondi, like sinasabi, huwag kayong siguraduhin nyo lang huwag kayong mahahanap ni Art Samaniego sa dark web, di ba? Siguraduhin nyo lang na huwag kayong majajaryo, di ba? Kasi pag ganun, di ba? Yun ang natin. So, we are building privacy resilience to prevent privacy disasters. Huwag lang maging disaster yung itong mga to. Kasi yan po talaga ang iwasan. Sa Pilipinas, pag magka-disaster dito, milyong kagad ang tatamaan. Nakita nyo lang yung Scamtex, di ba? Dito kung nagka-privacy disaster, milyong kagad ang tatamaan yan. Libo kagad. So, yun po yung iniiwasan natin. Kanina meron kasing, siguro I'll end by saying this, bakit tayo, and even my personal mantra. You see, DEFCON Dondi, be kind and be nice. Diba? Lagi ko sinasabi lang naman doon sa mga tao namin. Alam nyo, tulad ngayon, wala na ako dun sa NPC. Sa dami ng tao na dumaan sa amin, they came and went, wala na, diba? Sabi ko nga sa kanila, hindi ko na maaalala kung saan kayo nag-aral, kung saan kayo nagtapos, anong certification meron ka, diba? Pero sa every time na meron kayong papasukan, at meron kayong maalala ko lang sa inyo, hindi ko na maalala nga yung mga detalye ng buhay niyo. Maalala ko lang kung kayo ay naging problema o naging solusyon. Yan ang naging problema ka ba o naging solusyon ka? So, ang NPC, pinili nito maging solusyon. Right? So, ganun yung naging attitude niya. Yung mga tao natin, kaya maalala mo NPC. Kasi solusyon siya. Diba? So, ganun din tayong lahat. Kasi kung nag-a-apply sa mga buhay natin, to pang Christmas message na. But really, lalo sa mga bata dito, diba? Si Rolly Lansigan, solusyon yan. Si Mike Santos, solusyon yan. Diba? So, yun po yung mag-ano sa atin. Yung that will set us apart from them. Kasi, at lagi nating trabahuhin, lagi nating i-pursue sa bawat ginagawa natin, diba? Nagbibigay tayo ng solusyon. Right? Kasi yung po yung doon ka maaalala sa pagbibigay ng solusyon. Maalala ka rin kung problema lang ang binibigay mo. So, in a negative way. Yun lang maalala mo. Solusyon ba to o problema to? So, maging solusyon tayo. Lagi. Salamat, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Mon, na tumabot. Ito, may pahabol na ba sa'yo? Oh, ito, galing to kay Oliver Besa. Si Oli, napakasipag mag-post niyan sa, sa lahat ng social media pages. Magandang gabi. Again, Chairman Mon and Dondi, ang igsi ng gabi. No? So, sana next year, mag-guest uli kayo. O kaya, guest ko.
May naisip na ako, Sam.
Sige.
NPC Batch 1 reunion.
Uy, pwede. Concert yan, concert.
Diba?
Para naman Big Brother House
Parang friends lang.
Para si DPOM IB, kasama na rin natin, ano? Diba?
Totoo. Maganda yan. Maganda yan. We look forward to that.
The three gurus.
Saka marami pang storya yan eh.
Yun. Yung mga trenches stories ang gusto kong marinig.
For public consumption, syempre. Di ba? Ikaw talaga, Albert. Napakasarap talagang kausap si Chairman Mon saka si DPOM Dondi. Ang dami mo napupulot talaga na wisdom. And at the same time, para ka talagang it's like drinking from a fire hydrant Sa dami ng kanilang mga body of knowledge talaga. And I'm sure yung mga nanonood natin, mga data protection officers, lalo lang yung mga gustong magpunta sa Europe at magtrabaho sa Europe, pag-usapan natin next year, kung paano namin kayo matutulungan dito sa Privacy Fridays at Fightback Cybersecurity. Nandito po ang NADPOP, ang CERT Bonds for Philippines, ang dami nating MSMEs, Chairman Mon and DPOM Dondi, na nagbe-benefit dito sa ating show. In fact, sa replays, may mga nag-PM sa amin talaga. And yun po, yung ating mga hindi na training last year, this year, tutuloy natin siya. Next year. So, yun po ang pangako ng mga hosts. Yung mga absent dito kasi busy yung ibang host natin, Chairman Mon, DPOM Dondi. But sa back end, nandiyan si Kat Alinea. So, siya, manage sa So, ito po, pro bono work po to ng ating grupo. Minsan may nag-sponsor pero pinapamigay namin sa GCash like last week. Pero pinapaano po talaga spread the wealth. And again, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Maligayang Pasko po at sana sa bagong taon as Citizen Mon Liboro ito na. Subaybayan natin, ang sundan natin ang leadership pa rin ni Citizen Mon at of course Citizen Dondi Mapa. Okay, dito Abet. Final words.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Next year
good night.
Magandang gabi.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, guys.
Be safe.
Yeah. So we're hoping to see you again next year. Sam, magtayo na raw tayo ng consulting kasama na si Chairman Mon.
Yun!
Pahinga muna siya.
Marami pa akong nadidiscover sa compliance. Medyo mababa. Kaya tamang-tama yan.
Sakto yan. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.